Okay, are we ready to begin? Let me make sure before we get started that the video's rolling and we're good to go and everything's copacetic and I'm on screen and it's not just a plain black screen and there we go. We're up. All right. So, this is going to be an episode that I'm sure is going to be one of the most anticipated episodes of the show that I've ever done. And people have probably been looking forward to seeing this episode for over a year now, ever since it was announced that Mattel was going to get back the license for DC Comics. And sure enough, I have the first of Mattel's DC figures, or at least the first one that I've managed to acquire. They made sure they put a new blurb on there. Batman action figure, ages 4 and up. So your toddlers can play with this. That's great. TMNT N4W's here, and he says, yo, what up? Good to see you. And this is from the DC Supervillains line? DC Supervillains? Well, why DC Super? Why are we giving these guys the top billing? They're the bad guys. Shouldn't it be DC superheroes? I mean, really, honestly, why does it say DC supervillains? And, you might think that's weird just to begin with, but there's something else that's weird about that. Let's look at the cross-sell artwork here, where we have photographs of the figures in the first 4 figures in this assortment. And we have the Joker, we have Batman, we have Robin, and we have the Flash. So 3 Batman characters and 1 non-Batman DC character. Flash is like one of the either he's one of the first guys in the second tier or one of the last guys in the first tier, however you want to look at it. Like I'd kind of say, like, you got Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Green Lantern, Flash, Martian Manhunter, Zatanna, Elongated Man. Like that's kind of the tiers that you have there. So so Flash is probably a good choice to have, because I figure they probably want to save Superman for that second assortment. You know what I mean? You want to have a heavy hitter in each assortment, and God knows they're going to do multiple colors of Batman. I picked up the Batmobile for this line today on as a matter of fact. And if you look at the artwork on the back of that one, it has a black costumed version of this Batman. So I'm guessing that's one that's going to be coming soon. And the 12-inch version of this figure is in a black costume. I considered buying that, but I was already buying this one. And the only other figure from this line that they had there was the Flash. I thought about buying the Flash too, but I decided I'd wait on the Flash for a little bit. If they'd had Robin or the Joker, I might have picked those up, especially Robin. I really like this particular Robin costume design. That's Dick Grayson's Rebirth era costume. And we got a little bit of a blurb here on the back. Let's read it real quick. The nefarious DC supervillains never rest, always scheming and plotting. Their vile pursuit of crime and chaos wreaks havoc across the world. Superheroes beware. Man, they're leaning heavy into this supervillain thing, aren't they? But we got an image of Batman up here on the top. That's a very sort of, it's not a Jim Lee drawn image, but it's very reminiscent of like the Jim Lee style of drawing Batman. This illustration of Batman looks a little bit more like a Dan Mora Batman, and it does illustrate one of my nitpicks with this figure is, as we can see on the chest, we have a Rebirth Batman emblem, and I kind of feel like for a blue and gray Batman, I would have, especially with the capsule belt and everything like that, just do a pure Bronze Age Batman and give him that oval emblem. I think that would have been better. Not that I dislike the Rebirth emblem. I think the Rebirth emblem is really cool. I'm going to get more into what I like about the Rebirth emblem a little further on in the episode. First, let me acknowledge in the chat that Al Davis has arrived and says, evening, Alan, everyone in the chat. Yo, TMNT, says yo right back at him. And then says, I was busy watching one of your shorts, liking and commenting the Ray Skywalker edit from yesterday. Loved it. Yeah, apparently StreamYard has a thing where they'll edit shorts for you, and I just decided, what the hell, we'll go ahead and try some, and I threw a couple up there. So yeah, going back to this artwork, a lot of the DC action figure packaging over the past few years has been very bland. And I can show you a good example of that, because I still got these Supergirl figures over here. And I got this Batman Reborn figure that I don't even know if I'm going to open this yet. This is the Platinum edition of Dick as Batman, and oddly enough, it's a black and gray or blue and gray Batman. This is the blue and gray variant. I already opened. If you want to see me open at least a version of this figure, I opened the black and gray versions. There's a video of that. But you can see. Yeah, I've said this many times. I feel like the McFarlane packaging design was very sort of bland, and I do not blame McFarlane for that. I want to be very clear about that. I don't think that was a decision McFarlane made. It's very in line with the style of the trade dress that we just saw on various pieces of DC merchandising all throughout the last decade. I'd say ever since the Rebirth era, and thankfully, even the Mego figures still had that sort of bland uniform packaging going on with them, and they put Batman in a gray package and Superman in a blue package. And do you not understand why packages are set up with different colors in the back to make different figures pop out? That's why the original Mego figures put Superman on a yellow background and put Batman on a pink background, because blue and gray stands out on pink, yellow or red and blue stands out on yellow. And this one does have a much more interesting packaging design than I think what we saw with McFarlane or Spin Master, both of which I believe seem handcuffed by the very structured trade dress that DC was enforcing upon their licensees. But it seems like Mattel was able to get away from that, and I don't know if maybe that's just a shift in the corporate atmosphere at DC. I don't know if they hired a new person to be in charge of like their art direction or something like that. I don't know if James Gunn had something to do with it, and if James Gunn did have something to do with it, I want to give him some props for that. I give James Gunn a lot of crap on this channel, a lot of crap, and he deserves every single little bit of it. But I will give the man credit where credit is due, and when he does something that I actually like, I will give him credit for that. And one thing that I do always like to give James Gunn credit for is when he came back, when he came and took over DC, he brought back the classic Milt Glazer DC Bullet, and that's the one I grew up with. And he's a dude who's like not that much older than me, maybe like 10 years older than me. So that's what he grew up with too, I'm sure. And he brought that back for his own personal nostalgia, obviously. But it was a good decision, and I will give James Gunn props for that. And I don't even know if it was his idea. Honestly, somebody else could have been like, hey, I think we should bring this back. And James Gunn still would have had to have been the guy who says, oh, that's a good idea, do that. And I want to give him credit for that. So let's see. Al Davis says the black and gray Rebirth McFarlane Batman is one of the ones I have two. I have two Batmobiles, the white night one, because it's fucking awesome, and the BTAS 6-7-inch version. It's massive. Love it. Besides that, I have the Drifter motorbike from Battinson Batman because it was cheap. All are awesome. Yeah, like you might remember I talked about that motorcycle on my Vigilante review, because I put Vig on the motorcycle, see what he looked like on it. And I'm a big fan of, not a lot of things I'm a fan of from that movie, but I'm a big fan of the actual Bat Cycle design. Like I've said before, to paraphrase Mr. Plinkett, like that Bat Cycle design is so cool that I have to believe that Matt Reeves had nothing to do with its design, and in fact probably actively fought against it. I have two McFarlane Batmobiles myself. I have the 89 Batmobile. Obviously, if I'm going to have any Batmobile, it's going to be the 89 Batmobile. And I have the Batman Forever Batmobile. I did really want to get the multiverse version of the 66 Batmobile, which is my other favorite Batmobile, but missed out on that one, unfortunately. Al Davis says, I like the Batman Beyond Batmobile and Batplane. Want to get that Bat bike. Does work really well for so many different figures. Yeah, like I have the Three Jokers Batgirl on my at least the one I opened. I got a couple more still in the box, but I have her on my Pattinson Bat Cycle. So but yeah, Batman is on a blue packaging here. So of course the blue and gray maybe doesn't stand out quite as well as it might on a different colored package, but I still feel like it's an appropriate color scheme for the Dark Knight. One complaint that I do have is that you got this lovely illustration of Batman in the background. I think that's a really cool drawing. But unfortunately, it's going to get totally destroyed when I open up the figure. Now, granted, there's not a whole lot of room to fit the image on the front here anyway, but we maybe could have put it down here. You know, put this little label. Maybe you could have fit that down there. I think fit Batman over here. It would have been a smaller picture. Maybe have like a little more die cutting here. You wouldn't cover up that much more of the figure, would you? Have him over here. Have the name of the figure over here. There's a lot of empty space here in the package that you could have had this image of Batman in the insert, and we could have seen that better. Now, I'm just kind of, again, Monday morning quarterbacking the fine people at Mattel that design these packages, and I'm just a guy sitting on my couch talking about these figures on YouTube. I'm not, some kind of expert at packaging design, but I know what I like. And I can tell you what I like and what I think would have worked better, me personally. And we could have maybe put that image of the drawing of Batman on the back here. I don't know if that's Dan Mora. I can't tell, but it is a very very Dan Mora style Batman. And speaking of Jim Lee from earlier, that actually is a piece of Jim Lee artwork, but they have it very small, barely over an inch tall, and all monochrome and blue. And you would think if they were going to put like one of the most popular comic book artists today on their package, it might play it up a little bit. And honestly, I kind of feel like since this has the Rebirth bat symbol on there, it does look a little more like a Hush Batman than a Bronze Age Batman in a lot of ways. But Dan Mora's Batman is a Bronze Age Batman. It's a Bronze Age Batman with a little bit more of a modern flair, and that's what I love about his version of the Caped Crusader. Let's see. Al Davis says, "What is the multiverse '60s Batmobile like? Not the one from the Adam West series, the Chuck Barris one? Yeah, it's that one. It's that one. Triangle top, right where there could be a red triangle sticker. Bottom left. See, there's all kinds of things that they could have done with this. See, I don't mind them having the little new flash on there, but again, you probably could have moved this stuff over here. And since you've got this big space here, there you could have had your Dan Mora Batman illustration. It's funny they have the barcode on the front too. See it right there? They got the barcode on the back also. See, why do we need the barcode in like two separate places? And if you want to have it in a separate place, hey, look at that. There's like actually nothing down here. You could have very easily like extended the insert, had the barcode down there. This is real estate where a lot of stuff could go. That's like your legalese, technical jargon kind of thing. Your warning, choking hazard could have gone down here, and a bunch of other stuff. This is all friendly, constructive criticism. If anybody from Mattel is watching, I don't want you to take this harshly. I actually really like this packaging, and I want to say you guys did a much better job with packaging than McFarlane. And again, I'm not blaming McFarlane, but whoever's at DC that's working with the licensors, I don't know what the proper term is there. Whoever's doing that now is doing a better job than whoever was doing it before. Even if it's the same person, you're better at your job now. So good job. All right, I think that I've picked this packaging apart enough right now. We can talk more about it in future episodes because we're definitely going to open up more of these figures. But for now, let's literally pick apart the package and go ahead and open this guy up, because I know some of you have been chomping at the bit to hear what I have to say about the Mattel Batman figures. And I want to thank McFarlane for their years of figures that they've made, and they've done an excellent job with the DC line, and they were superb stewards of these legendary characters. But all good things must come to an end, and now they're back at Mattel. So let's see if Mattel can give us something that lives up to their previous figures and maybe even surpasses them. That would be good. Oh, I forgot to mention there's a little bat symbol over here. It's the oval bat symbol again. It's funny, even when they insist on putting like the plain black bat symbol on there, that oval symbol is always the one that they want to have trademarked on there. So maybe it should be the one he's wearing on his shirt for branding purposes, if nothing else. And this guy has like a whole wealth of accessories. First of all, this thing came loose in the package. We're going to set that aside because I know exactly what that is and it's important. And look at that. A plethora of accessories, an entire arsenal of bat paraphernalia for him to use in his war against crime. Oh, this is going to be some cool stuff. And then there's the figure itself. There he is in the package. And we can see we're just workshopping the packaging. That's right, Al. We're just workshopping it. That oval bat symbol everywhere for the 89 Batman movie. It was on the poster, it was on t-shirts, it was on the bubblegum cards, and man, I bought a ton of those bubblegum cards. Yeah, it was everywhere. That one I believe was designed by the brilliant production designer Anton Furst. May rest in peace. Love that guy. And then Al Davis says, I think the weapons wall rigging is a fucking great idea to include. I concur. And I can't wait to start talking about that in earnest. But for now, one of my pet peeves of Mattel, and this I actually am going to fuss at Mattel. I've fussed at Mattel many times. I'm going to fuss at them again right now. Stop putting the tape on the capes like this. You know, it's always going to leave residue on the fabric. And now forever, for the eternity, for the life of this action figure, he's always going to have this residue on the back of his cape. It's never going to go away. And worst case scenario, it's going to get discolored and it's going to collect dust and it's going to be just horrible. Yeah, see, like, you see how it's sticking to my finger? See, here's where there's no tape, falls right off. Here's where there was tape and it wants to adhere to my finger. It's my thumb. It's not doing anymore. Maybe I got enough thumb grease on there that you know, you can wash your hands all you want, but you're always gonna have that little bit of oil. Your fingers secrete oil. Naturally, your skin secretes oil, so it stays moist and supple. And you know, Al Davis says, I fucking hate that too. A gummy, grimy tab on the edge of fabric. For fuck's sake. Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, like, if you like when they tape in accessories, like let's say they had like batarangs or something they taped into the package. We see that a lot with figures. Even then, like, you know, you can clean that stuff off. You can use some goof off or some lighter fluid or, you know, some 90% isopropyl alcohol. A lot of things will get that stuff off of plastic. Nothing gets it off of fabric. It's in there forever. It's in there forever. It's never coming out. And here's Batman out of the package. And sharp-eyed viewers might have noticed something as I took him out of the package. Absolutely no rubber tabs, no rubber bands, nothing holding this guy in the package. Amazing. That's a beautiful experience right there. Now, one thing that I noticed about this Batman action figure that really impressed me when I was looking at pictures online of other people that have opened up this action figure is, look at this. He has a removable utility belt. Isn't that cool? Comes right off. There's Batman without his utility belt. He looks oddly naked without his utility belt to me. I don't know. It does remind me a lot of one of my favorite Batman comic books, illustrated by my favorite Batman comic book artist, the legendary Neil Adams. Wonderful guy. And in that story, the Joker takes Batman's utility belt and then cuffs him and tosses him into a shark tank, and Batman has to wrestle with the shark, and then he escapes and chases after the Joker. And there's that one really iconic full splash page of Batman running down the beach, and his feet are digging into the sand as he runs and kicking the sand up. And it's just an awesome. Batman's like running with his hand forward like this. And it's that kind of crazy Neil Adams perspective, that kind of hyper real kind of drawing that Neil was so good at. And it's one of the most iconic illustrations of Batman of all time. But unfortunately, because of the story, Batman is not wearing his utility belt. And you can't really, it's not really something that's that noticeable unless you're looking for it, because, you know, is the perspective and everything. But if you look at it, it's not there, at least in the original version. Now, they did do some altered versions of the artwork, and some of them even pop up in reprints of the book, even though they really shouldn't, where they draw the utility belt on there. And of course, Adams is, you know, he over the years would do different versions of the piece for various reasons, and then he would redraw it with the utility belt. But unfortunately, that original image is missing that particular essential piece of Batman's uniform. And check it out. This is something that's really cool. I've never seen this on a Batman action figure before. And I've seen a lot of removable utility belts. Like Mego had a removable utility belt. Pretty much any Batman that's got like a fabric costume in the Mego style has a removable utility belt. But this one actually buckles at the buckle. It's not like a little peg and hole in the back like you typically have. No, it actually has a functional belt buckle. And I don't know how well you can see that, but it is sculpted to look like the classic Batman belt buckle, where it's just kind of the plain buckle with a little tab sticking out of it. And it's all sculpted in there. And you can see there's a little, it's a little, it's a square shaped peg, a little notch cut out of it, so that I don't know what you call that, the little arm on the belt buckle, you know the thing I'm talking about. But it all fits together perfectly. It's beautiful. They did a really nice job with this. Al Davis says McDonald's, Nike, toilet roll, digital watches, bubble bath, etc. Yeah, everything. It was on everything. It was on literally everything. Al Davis says it's kind of totally unnecessary. Why not like a rubber band from braces or a loom band? BS things. The two tabs right of the cape would hold the cape flat. Yeah, I wouldn't mind the cape just wiggling around the package loose. I don't even really care about that. Who cares? That's fine. Just do that. But yeah, the tape is like, it's such a bad solution. And like, if you remember the early McFarlane Superpowers figures, those had the rubber tabs actually through the cape. And because of the type of fabric they used, it was just holes in the cape forever. Those capes were completely ruined. But this is that more kind of jersey material. And even rubber tabs would be better, because I think, you know, with the jersey material, the rubber tabs can go through them, and then you know, so, since it's kind of stretchy, it kind of conforms back. It's not as obvious as it is on that kind of like weird Christmas ribbon kind of fabric they used on those early McFarlane Superpowers. But yeah, that's the only time, that's the first time I've ever seen a Batman utility belt that actually buckles at the belt buckle. So that's really cool. And if we look at the back, Batman has several little tabs on here, and I'm sure you guys would guess what that's for, right? Yeah, Batman can actually carry around some accessories with him. And something else I noticed is an idea that they borrowed from Spin Master and their Batman toys. And he's got a little backpack hole there, so we can put a backpack onto him. And by the way, the Batmobile that I bought actually does come with a Bat jetpack, so Batman can have a jetpack. And you know what I say, jetpacks make everything better. There's nothing that couldn't be improved by including a jetpack. It doesn't exist. So, yes, his utility belt can now utility. Al Davis says his utility belt can now utility. In fact, yes, it can. Oh, man. There is a lot of good articulation on this figure. I'm going to get into that in a little bit. But I think first, we should probably explore the accessories. Before I do that, though, I do want to say this is a really good color scheme for Batman. This, you know, blue and gray. If I had to pick a favorite color scheme for Batman, yeah, I like the all black. Yeah, I like the black and gray. I think both of those are good. But for me, blue and gray, it's always going to be my favorite for nostalgic reasons, if nothing else. This is the Batman that I grew up reading about in the comic books. Al Davis says, "Psst, Alan." Well, go ahead. I'm here. I'm ready. You're checking out the articulation off camera. It happens. I'm not really talking about the articulation yet. We're going to get to that. I'm going to talk about the accessories first. We're getting to it. Don't worry. We're getting to it. we got a lot of stuff to go over with this figure, and there's a lot of cool stuff. And I've shown the figure for a little bit now, and we're going to talk about the accessories. Then we're going to go back to the figure. You know, I like to bounce all over the place. It's going to be cool. All right, so as L. Davis rightly pointed out, there is a weapons rack that comes with this figure. And if you remember the piece that I said earlier, that's going to be, it's a surprise tool to help us later. Well, that locks in there just like that. And we have an actual weapons rack that we can display Batman's weapons on. So that's going to be really cool. And I'm going to set it on the desk here. And it seems like, okay, it's not very wide at the base there. So you want to be careful when you set it down. And something else I noticed, it's kind of warped, like straight out of the package. So you might want to try to bend it back in shape a little bit. Maybe a hairdryer might be enough to do the trick and get it to straighten out on its own. But what I would suggest when you set it down, actually set it down on your shelf or whatever. Have your fingers towards the base of it and actually put it onto your shelf. And I let go slowly, and it's still standing there, and that seems to be fine. So that's how we want to do that. Now, we got all these weapons, and they're all in this weapons sprue. And that's something that takes me back to the 90s. Remember Ninja Turtles and 90s era G.I. Joe? And they'd all have the weapons on the weapons tree. And I would imagine this is going to become very familiar to us over the course of the next few years as we open up several Batman figures. And also these are weapons that could be used for not just Batman himself, but other members of the Batman family. You could have these come with Robin or Nightwing or Batgirl or anybody like that. Huntress, maybe. I mean, Huntress would want to have a crossbow, but still, like, you could give her batarangs and that kind of thing. So yeah, I would imagine we're gonna see these a lot in the future. And I'm not sure what the heck this thing is, honestly. Some kind of disc, I don't know. And then we got 3 batarangs in the more traditional shape. We got 3 batarangs that are kind of this thing where it's like this sort of S shape to the batarang. Can I get it to? You see what I'm talking about? Kind of does like this. S shape, Z shape, however you want to do that. Al Davis says, quick question, Alan, if that's cool. Did you get any of the McFarlane accessory packs? I got 2. In the end, I needed 2 Uzi machine guns from my Nemesis custom. No, I didn't actually buy any of those, but I do have some scans of those weapons that somebody put up on the Cult's 3D website, so I can 3D print some of those. But honestly, like while those are cool to have, I do kind of feel like the factory molded, painted accessories, those are always going to be a little bit nicer, obviously. But, you know, if you're somebody like me and you don't mind making your own stuff, Hulk's mom's kinky bra, I don't know, maybe, but she got killed by her husband, and, you know, it was a whole big traumatic thing. It's don't mention it to the Hulk. He's kind of sensitive about it. All right. So, yeah. You read the comic book, like Brian Banner killed his wife, beat her to death. It was horrible. They had that in the Ang Lee movie, but I think they kind of nerfed it a little bit. He just stabs her accidentally or something. But in the comic book, he beat her to death. It was horrible. But yeah, there's these little disc things. Let me see if I can get these off real quick. So I'm going to use my snips. And I suppose if you were a kid, you just want to pull these off of here. I know I always did that when I was a kid. But then you always wind up with that little bit of sprue that's still stuck on there. And it's kind of irritating to me as a kid anyway. But if I can get them off with the snips, I think that will help to eliminate that somewhat. Al Davis says, I thought the weapons wall / rack would have been cool with it. I actually got Sci-Fi Weirdo weapons and accessories pack, some cool ray guns and such. Well, you know, I think that you could probably adapt it to fit something like that to fit on here. I don't know, like, what kind of pegs or clips or whatever might hold it on there, but you can see that it's got these kind of rectangular tabs sticking out of it. And that's where our bat accessories are going to fit. You see there's this little rectangular hole in there. Well, that's something that you can stick it through these pegs, and that's how it's supposed to hold it on there. Like so. But there's all kinds of ways that you could figure out to use these as a basis to hang your weapons on. So I think there's some potential of that. And there's little grips over here at the side that are going to hold some things. So let's go ahead and continue to get these off of the weapons tree. So we got one more of these things. And again, I have no idea what this is. There is a little instruction sheet that came with it. So I think I might take a look at the instruction sheet, and maybe it's got a list of the parts and what they're supposed to do. I mean, obviously the batarang is a batarang, and obviously the grappling hook gun is a grappling hook gun. And these other things, they look like smoke grenades, probably. It seems like, if you want to have a Batman figure, like your first accessory you probably want to have as a batarang, or next accessory you want to have probably a grappling hook launcher, and then the third accessory would be, some kind of gas bombs. I mean, that's the traditional accessories of Batman, right? I mean, like, he's had the batarang since 1940. He's had gas pellets for even earlier. He had gas pellets in his. That was the first thing. That's what those capsules are supposed to be on his belt, is the gas capsules. And then, the grappling gun is a little more recent, but even that was, from Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns, and that was, 40 years ago at this point. All right, so step 1, assemble the weapon stand. We already did that, obviously. Step 2, remove the accessories from the frame. Warning! Adult must remove parts from frame and discard the frame after removing the parts. So kids, don't try to pull these off here like I used to do with Ninja Turtles. And it does not have a listing of what those weapons are. That's what it looks like. If you want a quick look. Al Davis says, I meant if she was a Hulk too. Well, then just She-Hulk. Just say She-Hulk. There's a She-Hulk, Al Davis says, is it a motion detector mine or some kind of stun plate? I have no freaking clue, man. They didn't tell me. There's no indication. There's no clue. Maybe something like that is in a comic book that I haven't read. And if that's the case, it's probably a comic book that came out sometime in the last 20 years or so. But, the great thing about having something that you had no idea what it is it can be anything you want it to be, right? So it could be a motion detector or a mine or a stun plate, really. If that's what you want it to be, that's what it is. And that's a beautiful thing. That's the wonderful thing about toys. You can pretend it's whatever you want it to be. It is whatever you want it to be. Even if the toy makers, intended to be something else entirely, you can still use it for whatever. It's like, remember when I was talking about the jetpack thing on Man at Arms? And spoiler warning, I saw the movie. It is a jetpack. But even at the time, I said, I don't know if this is a jetpack, but even if it wasn't, I know me as a kid, I would pretend it's a jetpack. And I did that a lot of anytime there was something that was on the back of my characters that looked remotely like a jetpack, I would imagine it was a jetpack. And you want to know why? You want to know why I did that? Because jetpacks make everything better. There is nothing that cannot be improved with the inclusion of a jetpack. And I will die on that hill. So Al Davis says, so my She-Hulk Viking style bra is cool? Well, of course. I mean, I love She-Hulk. I love warrior type barbarian women. So, that's all good with me, baby. That's all right. So we still got a lot more accessories to get off of this thing. Now, I figure in the future, I'm probably not going to go through the trouble of cutting every accessory off the accessory tree when I open up these figures. Because as you can see, it's kind of a time-consuming process. This is something that I'm going to have to devote a few minutes to in this video. And I'm going to have to think of interesting things to say. And right now, my interesting things to say are going to be me discussing just the very process of it. But you can see it's taking some time. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who are like, geez, can we just get back to the figure already? But this is the first time I've ever opened one of these. So I really want to just go through the whole process with you guys. So there's one of the traditional batarangs. And there are 3 of those. On this little subsection of the weapons tree, we have 3 batarangs and one of the smoke grenades. And I got to say, I don't really like the placement of this particular sprue that's at the top of the bat ear, because it's just kind of at a difficult place for me to get with the snips. I figure the reason they tell you get an adult to do it on the package is so that an adult can do exactly what I'm doing right now and cut the weapons off with some scissors or something like that, as opposed to being a kid just ripping off roughly. And then again, you've got that little piece of the sprue hanging off for the rest of the remainder of the life of the toy, and it's just so irritating. Or an adult could probably even take an X-Acto knife and do it. But I'm going to do the snips. There we go. And that's all 3 of my more traditionally shaped batarangs. And then we have the more S-shaped batarangs over here. And oh, damn it. I think I dropped the thing with the, because it still had that smoke capsule on it. Yeah, here it is. I found it. It still had, I forgot it still had the smoke capsule on it. So I just kind of let it fall out of my hand. I wasn't really trying to throw it on the floor, I don't think, but I don't remember. It might have just fallen off when I cut that batarang. So that is what the smoke capsule looks like. And again, this is a toy. We can pretend it's whatever we want it to be. So it doesn't even necessarily have to be a smoke capsule. I'm saying it's a smoke capsule because that's what I traditionally associate with Batman. But you could pretend it's a flashbang grenade or even a traditional explosive if you wanted to. There's no reason that Batman couldn't have any of that stuff on his utility belt. All right. You can pretend like these batarangs have like taser stuff built into them, or, you know, maybe one of them's got like a spy microphone or something he throws into the wall and is listening to what the bad guys are saying. A couple more smoke grenades over here. Go ahead and get those off. Almost looks like kind of like a TIE fighter a little bit from the profile. All right, so we got the get the sprue out of the middle. La-di-da-di-da. And you know, I cut that one a little too far from the grenade. So you know what? It's got that little piece of sprue still stuck on there. Annoying. Al Davis says, I still have my BTAS smaller scale from 20 years ago. Came with the clip-on art or Rocketeer Art Deco style jetpack with the rotating side engines with it. It's super cool. Yes, it is, isn't it? Hey, you know what makes Batman cooler? It's jetpack. You want to know why? Because there's nothing in this world that cannot be improved with the addition of a jetpack. You know what James Bond, you know which James Bond actor used a jetpack? Sean Connery. You know who's the coolest James Bond? Sean Connery. Do you think that's a coincidence? It probably actually is a coincidence, but whatever. Also, clip on the beltable? Yes, indeed, it is. There are little rectangular tabs on the back of Batman's belt, so we can put not all of this crap. We can fit like 3 things on there. But yeah, you can fit his equipment onto his utility belt. It's very well designed. And there is the grappling hook launcher. And as we can see, that's the traditional shape of a grappling hook launcher, at least it has been since 1989 when Michael Keaton first used his. And as I pointed out, Frank Miller had Batman using a grappling hook launcher in 1986 in his Dark Knight Returns graphic novel. But I think that at least as far as the pop cultural landscape, the thing that really cemented it in the minds of the general population was the 1989 Batman movie, because that's where most of them saw it for the first time. They're not reading comic books. They think of Batman and they think about Adam West. That's how it was back then. Like, everybody thought about Adam West when they thought about Batman. And like, I was the guy reading the comic books, and yeah, I loved Adam West. I always thought Adam West was super cool. I think he's like still one of my favorite versions of Batman. But I tried to tell people at the time, Batman in the comic books is not really like that. He's a much more serious, much darker kind of character. And people are like, Batman? Come on, he's a guy in tights, whatever. And then they see that Michael Keaton Batman movie, and they're like, oh, now I get it. I love Adam West. I think he's a great Batman. Still, like I said, still one of my favorite versions of Batman. Maybe my most favorite live action version of Batman. But I do think that it's better that not be the dominant image of Batman in popular culture. Not because it's a bad version of Batman, or even that any other version of Batman is better than that one. That's a debate that could be had, I suppose. But for me, I kind of feel like Batman as a character is kind of a Rorschach test. He's all things to all people. And you bring a lot of yourself and your own life experiences into how you see Batman. And I think that back when most people thought of Adam West as being Batman, most people just kind of thought of Adam West as being Batman. But now I'd say there's probably still a lot of people that think of Adam West as being their definitive Batman, and rightly so, because like I said, he's a great Batman. But I think it's better that there's a broader perception of what Batman is. So you have the Adam West Batman, which is awesome, and you have the Michael Keaton Batman, which is awesome. You have Batman in the animated series, which is awesome. You have Christian Bale, which is awesome. You have Ben Affleck, which is awesome. You have Robert Pattinson, Adam West, Michael Keaton, Ben Affleck, Christian Bale are all awesome. Al Davis says if only they bring out an accessories pack for these figures, they could have a grapple gun with a double hinge to fold out, like the Vicky Vale scene in the art gallery. That would be a really cool thing to see. Like I said, I expect that we're just going to see this particular Batman weapons tree a lot in this series. I assume just every straight up repaint of this version of Batman is going to have that. But having been said, they're probably going to do some other variants of Batman that aren't just straight up repaints of Batman. And I think when they get around to that, then maybe they'll do some different accessories. Like, obviously, let's say they do a scuba Batman. Obviously, he'd want to come with like a scuba tank and some flippers and a bat snorkel mask, kind of scuba gear, all that kind of stuff. And, if they do an Arctic Batman, he'd probably want to have like, a pickaxe and some climbing accessories and, that sort of thing. Samurai Batman, they might do a Samurai Batman that comes with a katana sword and a big old samurai helmet. Get into the really crazy stuff. Here's your Viking Batman, what have you. Yeah, with string, a tiny fastener on it, 2 suction cups. You can clip the string to the sideways grapple gun and suction the cups and whoosh, yeah, exactly. Down or at a slightly declined angle on the screen. Shark repellent gas gun. Exactly. Hey, one of these cans could be the shark repellent. Again, we can pretend like these little grenades or whatever we want them to be. This could be his shark repellent that he could use and spray it on the shark. We can do whatever we want with it. And, I was just talking about a Batman comic book story where he fought a shark. And that's not the only one. He fought a shark in Venom in the Legends of the Dark Knight series. Batman, oddly enough, has fought more sharks than Aquaman at this point. He's fought so many sharks. So let's get a look at Batman holding some of these accessories. And I think I'm going to start with the funky, since I happen to have in my hand the funky kind of S-shaped Batarang. So there he is with that. About to hurl that at an evildoer. Al Davis says, tiny shark stop sign sticker now needed. You know, if they were designing it today, it'd probably be like a universal no symbol. Like that's become really popular, at least in the United States, since Ghostbusters. And the funny thing is that like you know, over here in the United States, it was not a very commonly known. I know over in Europe, over there, it was a very well-known symbol on a lot of their parking, you know, the traffic signs and things like that, no parking and that sort of thing. But over here, it didn't really start to become popularized until Ghostbusters, and then everybody knew what it meant. But it was still inspired by the universal no symbol from over there. But the thing that Ghostbusters got wrong, if you look at the Ghostbusters emblem, which I think is really funny, is that the universal no symbol is supposed to be shaped like the bar that goes across. I guess for you guys, it'd be this way, right? The bar that goes across is supposed to be the bar that goes across in the letter N. So it's supposed to look like an N with an O around it, an N with an O around it, a no. You see there? Yeah, no parking, no right of way, no entry. Exactly. But back in the 80s in the United States, it was not as common as it was over there. Now everybody over here knows what it is, but they know what it is because of Ghostbusters. But even then, Ghostbusters had the emblem backwards. So a lot of the times when you see like British and European Ghostbusters poster, they'll correct it so that the no symbol is facing the right way, but now the ghost is going the other way. So it's kind of a funny thing. It's kind of funny how that works out. But the guy who designed, I'm drawing a blank on the guy's name who designed it. Brilliant designer, good guy. Did a great job with that design, but I guess he just like didn't know why it was designed. No with a K. He didn't know why it was designed that way, so he didn't really see the significance in it. Probably just thought it looked better with the ghost facing in the direction that he was facing, for whatever reason. So Bobby Wald says, with as many versions of Batman action figures as there are, I could see Seth Green doing a Robot Chicken skit where all the different versions are back and forth. I'm Batman. I'm Batman. I'm Batman. I'm Batman. I could do that myself. I'm Batman. I'm Batman. I'm Batman. I'm Batman. Oh man. We're having a lot of fun today, aren't we? Al Davis says, Bobby, that could be insanely funny if it goes on forever. Yeah, it takes up the whole episode, spills over into the ending credits, that kind of thing. Let's get back to talking about some of these accessories. So he does come with 2 of these batarangs. In case I hadn't mentioned it. And he comes with 3 of the more traditional batarangs. And if you look at this hand, it's clearly sculpted to be a batarang holding hand. It's a perfect shape. It's exactly how artists usually draw his hand to be holding the batarang in the comic book when Batman goes to hurl it at the supervillains. Al Davis says, and Clooney, hi, Freeze, I'm Batman. It's like, hey, you want to see my imitation of George Clooney as Batman? And he's still better than the Robert Pattinson, I'm sorry. Sorry, not sorry. So there he is with the more traditional shaped batarang. And, you know, it's not like a classic Silver Age batarang. It's obviously still a little more modernized. But I'm talking the general shape of it is more the traditional classic batarang shape. So that's really cool. That's a great accessory. And then whatever this thing is, I've cursed enough on this episode. Whatever this thing is, well, Batman himself is rather perplexed. He can't figure out what this thing is. We're going to talk about the articulation in a little bit, I promise. All right. So, but like I said, you can imagine it's whatever you want to be. That's the great thing about toys. All right, and then we've talked about these a lot, but let's get a picture of Batman holding one of the gas grenades in his hand. Gas grenades, sun grenade. And like I said, it could be tear gas, it could be knockout gas, it could be smoke, so he can do his ninja escape. You know, Gal Davis says it could be shark repellent, could be anything you want it to be. you could pretend that this is like a one of those syringes that he shoots somebody with when they've been shot up with the Joker toxin. Let's say He-Man got exposed to the Joker toxin, and Batman just real quick hits him like one of those pens when you have the allergy, just kind of hits him with the Joker antidote like that. So I don't know if Joker toxin would even work on He-Man because he's superhuman, but I'm just using that as an example. Al Davis says, well, boomerang shaped, less batty, more orangy. Yes, exactly. So, and then we got the grappling hook gun, last but not least. So let's get a look at him with the grappling hook gun. And there he is, about to go off on another adventure. Just like that. Al Davis I wasn't being facetious. It's just often it's more like a shuriken, less boomerang, spiny and knockouty. Yeah, like that's another Frank Miller thing. Like he redesigned the batarangs to be like these tiny little shurikens a lot of the time, and then you had the classic batarang, of course, is more of a blunt weapon. So, but I mean, like I was thinking that like the classic boomerang shape, and then you have this kind of S-shaped one. So, and then of course, Batman Begins and the rest of the Dark Knight trilogy, kind of again like with the grappling gun in Batman '89. Those I think kind of more popularized the shuriken type batarangs as far as the popular culture goes. But he did use shuriken type batarangs from time to time in Batman the Animated Series, and there were some not batarangs but proper shurikens that were designed for use in the 1989 movie. The props were even made, but I don't believe they were ever actually used in the film, not that I can recall. But if you look through like the behind the scenes books at the time, and I think there was even trading cards of them, you had those bat shurikens, and they even made their way into the Nintendo video game for the original Nintendo Entertainment System. The which is why I just call it Nintendo, because we just called it Nintendo back then, before the Super Nintendo and the GameCube and the N64 and all that kind of stuff. The Wii, I think they're on now. Wii, they're on that one. So last one I had, I think it was the N64. That was the last one they had that had cartridges. I'm so freaking old school. Yeah, the shuriken. Yeah, that's a thing. That's a thing. I think they called it a dirk, is what they called it. But yeah, there's like I had the Batman 1989 action figure actually came with one as an accessory. So even though, like I said, they didn't quite make it into the movie. Al Davis said we had the NES and the Super NES, or the SNES. Yeah, somebody says SNES, and I feel like they stifled a sneeze or something. All right, so we're going to talk about the articulation on this figure now, and we are going to do it on camera, believe it or not. All right, so and this is going to be new for me because I haven't talked about one of these figures yet. But I got to say, just from moving it around, the articulation seems like it's really good, especially for a figure of this type. Now, a lot of people were talking about with the core Masters of the Universe line, how this is such a great line of figure for $10, and it's got such great articulation, and this line is a bargain at $10. And while I do agree, this one blows it out of the water, man. Just in every conceivable way. First of all, you see Batman's like a full head taller than He-Man. So these figures are not in scale, despite being the same price. And I figure, as I pointed out before, I figured that the reason that the He-Man figures, the core He-Man figures, are this size is because that's the same height as the Origins figures and the vintage figures, and they probably want a lot of the accessories, the vehicles and whatnot, to be compatible back and forth. I've talked before how, like, I kind of feel like even though one is supposed to be part of the core line and one is supposed to be part of the Origins line, that the Fright Fighter and Roton are actually both supposed to be, you can put either type of figure on them, is what I suspect. So Batman is much taller. This is more like the size of a DC Universe Classics figure, and I wish that I'd thought to get a DC Universe Classics figure out of my storage so I could demonstrate that, but it feels to me like it's about that height. It might be give or take a little taller, a little shorter, what have you. You can see he's about half a head taller than this McFarlane New Adventures Batman. So he's a little taller than the Adam West line that they were making. And of course, this is the Filmation version of Batman. So, a little taller than those figures. And that means, I believe, that if you're collecting the 2025 Superman movie line, these will probably be a little bit larger than those two. So if you're seeing the Superman figure that's still hanging around on clearance at your local Walmart for $3.50, and you're thinking maybe that'll fit in with my Mattel, my new Mattel figures, it probably won't. Superman will be a little bit short. But, now that I think about it, if I wanted to do a custom of Superboy, use the David Cornsweet figure as a basis, I could do a Superboy in this scale, couldn't I? Maybe get the Guy Gardner figure also and swap some pieces around so he'd have a jacket. And I could do a pretty cool 90s Superboy with the or just do a Silver Age Superboy, kind of redo that costume a little bit. Al Davis asks, what are your thoughts on the hole in the cape for a standee type of thing? I think I'd prefer it without to hide the standee thing with a cape. That's not a bad idea. Like if you had a figure stand that I'm sure that there are some that would fit where it's the peg that goes in the back. Like I've seen several figures that come with figure stands that peg into the back. Al Davis says, with the bowl cut? No, I just use the Cornsweet head. Oh, you mean the 90s Superboy bowl cut? Yeah, we could shave down the hair on the sides a little bit. I think that's possible. I think Cornsweet's youthful enough that he could pass for a 90s Superboy if he's standing much shorter than the other superheroes, that is. And I think it would work. I think it would work okay. So, hey, if Zack Snyder can cast a 30-year-old Henry Cavill as a 15-year-old Clark Kent, I can use David Cornsweet as Superboy. I think that would be fun. But yeah, I think you probably could do that if you wanted to. I don't know if I'd want to. I think I might agree with you. It might be better to put the cape over the back of the figure stand. Now you can see that this is just a plain piece of fabric, just cut piece of fabric. It's not a wired cape. But I'm not going to complain about the lack of a wired cape here. You know why? Because this action figure cost me $10. This is not a nearly $40 action figure. This is a very nice action figure. I don't want to sound like I'm bad mouthing it, but it's not a high end action figure. You know what I mean? This is not an adult collector piece like we saw before. Ages 4 and up. This is for children. It's for children. This is a child's plaything, and from what I've seen of it so far, it is an excellent and very high quality child's plaything that any child would be happy to own. But it is still a child's plaything, nevertheless. The colors are good. I really like the colors. I think the paint is good. I think the paint is sharp on the chin with the cowl. We got the white classic Batman eyes. Bobby Walt says that's how how Bruce Wayne stays a billionaire. He skips on the wire for his cape. Yeah. And there's detail to this figure. Like they could have just painted in his chin flesh colored and called it a day, but no, they did actually bother to put a little bit of a pink wash over his lips, and it looks like to me like I can't tell for certain in this light. Let me try the flashlight so I can look a little closer. Yeah, he's actually got a little bit of shading around his eyes, like almost like they painted like black eyeliner, for lack of a better term, around his eyes. The eyes are like a really glossy kind of white, and they're almost kind of silvery, which I think is a really nice touch. So yeah, they did actually put some effort into painting this guy's face. Like I said, they could have done something a lot simpler. And on what was, allegedly a more high-end line, several years ago with the DC Universe Classics, they usually didn't bother to paint in the lips like that. But they did it here. I'm going to go ahead and say this. This is my theory as to why Mattel went so hard on this figure. What could have been a much more cheaply produced figure. They could have just done the same kind of stuff that Spin Master was doing and been fine. I think people would have been fine with it. People would have been like, well, it's a kid's toy. What are you going to do? I think Mattel went so hard on this figure because they were picking up the license from McFarlane. And they knew that they were going to have a lot to live up to as far as the collector's perception of their DC line. So they brought their A game, and I think it was worth it. This is fantastic action figure. And I haven't even gotten to talking about the articulation yet, have I? So then we got the bat symbol on the chest. And as I pointed out before, that is the Rebirth bat symbol. And while, again, nitpicking, armchair quarterbacking, Monday morning quarterbacking, I would have rather had the oval emblem on there. Because to me, for the most part, this feels like an old school, Bronze Age Batman. This is the same Batman that I grew up with in the 80s. And the Batman that I grew up in the 80s, though, he didn't have this emblem. He had the oval Batman emblem. And I feel like that would have been a more appropriate choice. That having been said, I do really like, taking on its own merits. I do really like the Rebirth Batman emblem. And I'm going to tell you why I like it right now. This is the thing that I like best about the Rebirth Batman emblem and why I think it works so well. It's that yellow border on there, which just helps it pop against the gray, helps it stand out just that little bit more. That's what makes it really work for me personally. And I think that just looks awesome. iRock Philly is here, and he says, my favorite will always be the Mego superhero figures. Well, that is a totally understandable opinion to hold. And I myself am a huge fan of the original Mego world's greatest superheroes. Those are, I think, they might not be the most high quality superhero figures ever made. They might pale in comparison to like later clothed figures, like your Hot Toys kind of stuff. But for me personally, I don't think any other superhero figures have the ability to take me back in time like that. You know what I mean? Like nothing feels the same to me as those old Mego action figures. And they hold up pretty well today. I think some of them, like Green Arrow, Iron Man, they did some like really great figures back in the day. Yeah, sure, Batman had the oven mitts, whatever, but but considering what they were working with at the time, they made the best superhero action figures they could make, and we liked them. God damn it, we loved them, and I think I was even kind of aware of some of the flaws about him, like Batman's oven mitts, and maybe his cape was a little too short and things like that. But it didn't stop me from loving the hell out of those figures, and I still love the hell out of those figures. So. Great comment. Thank you. Al Davis says, oh, yeah, I meant to say this earlier. It was Mythic Legions that was doing the skeletons. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to have to look those up then. Al Davis says, but I saw Keep Going Studios release a new super awesome, massively articulated human skeleton figure. I want to get a few. Yeah, those do sound cool. Bobby Wald says, I'm surprised that no one in Gotham has ever investigated who owns the trademark to the bat symbol. Oh, Wayne Enterprises owns it. That's all the investigation we need to do for now. Well, Grant Morrison wound up doing a thing in his Batman run that I think most people ignored later on, where Bruce Wayne publicly revealed that it was indeed him that was bankrolling Batman's operation. So I think they found a little bit of a workaround there. Now, granted, that's a little Tony Stark, in my opinion. But, I can forgive Grant Morrison doing some weird things like that. And, like I said, it's Grant Morrison. So they just kind of ignored it once Once he was done with Batman, nobody ever talked about it again. Honestly, as much as I like Grant Morrison, some of his ideas work better that way, where they just kind of work in that Grant Morrison world. And maybe we can use Damian or something like that. Maybe we can work something like that in there. But people try to do something with like the Batman of Zur-En-Arrh, and I don't think anybody's really done anything as great as with Zur-En-Arrh as Batman or as Morrison did with Zur-En-Arrh. Just my opinion. So yeah, and there's a lot of really interesting details to this guy. Like there's seams and there's textures. Like this is almost kind of like more like a mesh kind of texture here. So and that's on the side panels of the torso and underneath the arms there. Like maybe that's kind of like a softer fabric that can breathe more, or maybe something a little more heavily armored. I don't know. It could go either way. Again, it's a toy. You can pretend it's whatever you want to. Maybe it's just a design element. Maybe when Lucius was putting the thing together, he just thought it looked cool, And they did add a lot of detail to Batman's gauntlets. As you can see, there's some armored design there. That seems like original design work. That seems like the sort of thing Mattel themselves came up with. And some armored design to the boots. The boots do remind me a lot of Christian Bale's Batman boots, where they're kind of flat at the top over here. But even though they've got a lot more detail to the bodysuit and the gloves and the boots and everything, it's still a very classic Batman design. And he's got the blue trunks. He does have the underpants on the outside. He's got a little blue underpants. Now, iRock Philly, of course, mentioned the Mego superheroes earlier, and one of the things that I kind of retain from the Mego version of Batman is, remember that he had black trunks rather than blue trunks. So I always think that looks cooler than the blue trunks. But I don't blame somebody for giving him blue trunks. I think that still works fine, but I think Mego had the right idea in giving him the black trunks. I think that was the absolute best. All right, so I think that's it for talking about the sculpting and paint detail and all that kind of stuff. Let's get into discussing some of this articulation finally. So Batman's head can move up that way and move down that way. Tilt his head kind of goes from side to side. Rotate the head all. I'm just messing with you. All right, so Batman can look up about that far. He can look down about that far. He can tilt his head from side to side. Rotate the head all the way around. Of course, the arms rotate all the way around the shoulders. And they raise up to the sides about that far. iRock Philly says, I agree, Alan. That's because you are a man of sophistication and culture. So his arms can move up to the sides about that far. And he has a single joint of articulation at the elbow. Seems to bend back about that far and forward about that far. That is some excellent articulation there, especially since, like I said, that's just a single joint. And it moves like more than 90 degrees. So that's really good. I like that. And then that rotates all the way around. And then he has a wrist joint that rotates all the way around. And this wrist joint has a horizontal hinge on it. So it moves back and forth like so. And this wrist has a horizontal hinge on it. So it moves back and forth like so. They both have horizontal hinges. Batman does not have any torso articulation. But this is a $10 figure. And we've already had a ton of articulation in these arms. So I'm not going to complain too much about him not having torso articulation. And the waist does rotate all the way around. But remember, he's got this removable utility belt. So it's going to kind of bump into that a little bit, stretch that around a little bit. I was playing around a little bit with the belt earlier. That's about as low down as I can get it to go. I can maybe get it to go lower, but you'd have to like really stretch it over the pelvis. And you can also pull it up to where the waist, the waist articulation is unencumbered by the belt. If you pull it all the way up like that, but that's a very 1940s kind of Batman look. You know what I mean? Like the old movie serial, like Lewis Wilson Batman. That's what that looks like. That's Grandpa Batman. Al Davis says, I like the big chunky boots, actually. I agree. On Batman, big chunky boots are a good thing. I do like the sleeker, the Nike Air Jordans that Michael Keaton had. But for the most part, yeah, Batman can have like big chunky tactical boots with the tread on the bottom. We do have some tread on the bottom of these boots, by the way. Not the full Jim Lee tread with the bat symbol sculpted into it, but he's got some tread, so that's cool. But yeah, I like those. I don't like big clunky boots on Superman. That's the thing. Superman, I kind of feel like he should have those really close, slim, tight-fitting boots that look almost more like he's wearing socks. The way that Kurt Swan drew them. The way that Christopher Reeve's Superman boots look, where they built them off of ballet slippers. The way that Henry Cavill's Superman boots look, where it looks like they're more incorporated into the body of the suit. That's a Kurt Swan. That's a golden age. That's a classic Superman boot. That's how Superman boots ought to be. But Batman can have big, clunky, chunky boots. All the better to kick the bad guys in the head with. That's what I say. iRock Philly says, in my head, I always think the real, genuine Batman is Adam West's version. That logo, etc. And yeah, I was just talking earlier about my love for the Adam West version of Batman. He's always going to be one of my favorites. He's always going to be, if not my most favorite live action Batman, he's definitely towards the top. I kind of feel like my top three, and if they're separated, it's by like a hair's breadth. I like Adam West, and I like Michael Keaton, and I like Ben Affleck. And my reasoning why that works for me, I had that way, is like Adam West is the guy I grew up with. Adam West is the guy that I built my version of Batman in my head around. That's my first exposure to the Batman mythos, just in general. And then Michael Keaton came when I was 13 years old. That movie came out, and by that point, as much as I loved Adam West, I was really ready to see a more serious, grittier, darker, more theatrical, more operatic version of Batman. And Tim Burton, Michael Keaton, they gave me exactly that. And I can't talk about the movie without giving some credit to Jack Nicholson as the Joker. So that version is one that I'm always going to love. And plus, as a guy who's a true aficionado of the Batman comic books, like if you go back and you read the earliest Batman comics from 1939, that's the Michael Keaton Batman right there. When Michael Uslan met with Tim Burton to discuss the movie with him, he gave him a stack of comic books. And the comics he gave to Tim Burton, he gave him The Dark Knight Returns, he gave him The Killing Joke, and he gave him the first year of Detective Comics before Robin appeared on the scene. And like I said, 1939 Batman. That is your Michael Keaton Batman. And then finally, the Ben Affleck version of Batman. That's to me the most, at least of the version that I knew. And I'll say specifically the Frank Miller version of Batman. That's the one that's most like the comic book version of Batman for my personal tastes. And it's very close to Batman the Animated Series. Batman the Animated Series is one of the best versions of Batman. And the Bronze Age Batman of the comics, the Neil Adams Batman. Like if I had to pick one that's my most favorite version of Batman, I got to go with that Neil Adams version. So Al Davis says, I won't spoil it, but it's super big time worth watching. Made by I'm sorry, I missed the comment about Dead End. I meant to point that out earlier. Yeah, I did really enjoy Batman Dead End by Sandy Collara, and I would recommend that to anybody who's a fan of the character. Anybody who's a fan of I don't want to spoil it either, but certain other movie franchises that Batman has crossed over with in the comic books, but has not crossed over with in live action. We'll just put it like that. When you watch it, it's not just a pure Batman fan film. It's going to have some other elements, some other characters in it. It's cool. Just check it out if you haven't seen it. iRock Philly says, I wish the Batman or the TV show Gotham had continued, brought back another weekly Batman TV show. Yeah, and I felt like in a lot of ways, even though that had a more modern aesthetic to it, I kind of felt like that one was a spiritual successor to the Adam West TV show in a lot of ways. Ultimate Sin C9B is here and asked, do you like the Val Kilmer version of Batman? Absolutely. I love Val Kilmer's Batman. I think that he is the most underrated of all Batmen. Like he's definitely towards the top of my list as well. Al Davis says, well said, sir. Thank you. And Bobby Wald says Athena Finger was on my friend's channel the other day. The granddaughter of Bill Finger. She got a good laugh out of a joke I made. Is it true that Batman has in his utility belt play play buy one get one free at Gotham Orphanage? Yeah, I can see why she'd laugh at that because it's funny. Yeah, I follow Athena Finger on Instagram. She's a very cool lady. So I'm gonna get back to the articulation on this now. So Batman can kick up about that far, a little more than 90 degrees. Not the best articulation for kicking up, but still pretty good. I think that's fine. And then Batman can do the splits no problem. With his big legs and his karate, he can do the splits no problem. All right. And then Batman, by the way, these are ball jointed hips. They move all over the place. Batman has a thigh cut that rotates all the way around. So there's that. And then this is the coolest thing about this figure. On a $10 figure, this is a cool thing to have. Batman has double jointed knees, and that's the range of motion you get at the knees. Now, that having been said, there's no ankle articulation whatsoever. That knee articulation, that's where it ends. But I'm fine with that. I'm not really like ankle articulation is fine, but for me, that's just sauce for the goose. We don't really need ankle articulation. I'm cool without it. And for a $10 action figure, this guy is already packed with articulation. So, like I could ask for more, but it being greedy, wouldn't I? Nah, I'm going to be happy with what we got. So yeah, let's look at him next to some other action figures, and we can get a look at what he looks like in against some various other scales. So we already saw him against, like I said, the Adam West type Batman, the Filmation Batman. It's not really. I mean, it is an Adam West Batman because he did the voice. You know what I mean? This is an Adam West Batman. They gave him a cartoon head. That's what I'm saying. So he did the voice of Batman on this cartoon. So it's still an Adam West Batman. So it's almost a head taller than that one. So they're not quite in the same scale. Let's see him next to my favorite Battle Armor He-Man. And of course, He-Man is way taller than him because He-Man is one of the tallest figures in that line, which technically is a larger scale than this one to begin with. Let's see him next to a Cartoon Collection Filmation figure. And he's actually about the same height, because those are pretty tall for Masters Universe figures. He's actually about the same height as Skeletor. He's only like less than half a head taller than Skeletor. And if we next to one of the tallest Origins figures, the 2000X He-Man, he's barely any taller than He-Man. All right, so next to a McFarlane figure, I happen to have the Joker handy here, the not Jack Nicholson Joker. And of course, he stands a bit taller because this is a larger scale. So these will not be compatible with Masterverse, I don't think. So, and this is not with Multiverse. I'm sorry, I meant to say Multiverse. But going back to Masterverse, Scareglow is like just a little bit taller. So there we go. So that's how he measures up to some other action figures that I just happen to have here on. We should like have him next to Flash Gordon. Let's see how tall he is next to Flash Gordon. And he's actually like not too much shorter than Flash Gordon. So I think that the NECA King Features figures, not the movie Flash Gordon figures, those are a little bit taller, but the NECA King Features superheroes, like the original superheroes, Defenders of the Earth, the Filmation, Flash Gordon, those are actually pretty well in scale, I think, with these figures. How about that? That's a pleasant surprise. So when I get Superman, I can have Superman team up with Flash Gordon. I can have Batman team up with the Phantom. How awesome is that? Al Davis says, ah! Yes, indeed. Ultimate Sin says, I used to wonder if the Joker and Penguin would team up. You mean in the movies? That would have been cool. But unfortunately, they killed off the Joker. That's sad. Al Davis says, I have a cool Batman Joker idea with the Joker. A super bullied kid in the orphanage gets his jaw broken so badly many times he can unhinge it and set it back into a hideous, creepy grin. Yeah, that's a way to do it. Man Who Laughs, black and white, black and white. I'm gonna say W. I already said black and white. Black and white film style grin. Yeah, the original inspiration for the Joker, Conrad Veidt, indeed. Defenders of the Earth, defenders. Yeah. Well, I don't know how inspired that song was by the Queen Flash Gordon song, but it definitely does have the same flavor, I think. Man, I would love to see a live action Defenders of the Earth. Wouldn't that be awesome? So I might be the only person that watches it. But I would love to see a live action Defenders of the Earth. You know, the Phantom and Flash Gordon, Mandrake, Lothar, all of them teamed up against Ming. That would be cool. Al Davis says, I saw a Batmobile that looked blue and gray, hot rod on steroids, crossed with an armored Bumblebee. Like recently, I think. That might be the Mattel one I was looking, because that's a gray Batmobile. That might be the one that I picked up today. Is that the Batmobile that you got? The one I saw? I don't know. It might have been. Let's see. I just Google Mattel 2025 Batmobile. It should probably be one of the first thing that comes up. Mattel. Or 2026, I'm sorry. Batmobile. Yeah, we got an image of it. I don't know how well it's going to come across over the video, but yeah, it's too bright. Try to, maybe if I lower the brightness somewhat, maybe that'll help. Is it that one? If only I were clever enough to bring up pictures on the stream. I know there's a way to do it, but Al Davis says he would love that film, so I guess I'm not the only one. I guess me and Al Davis, we might be the only people in the theater, but we would be in the theater, wouldn't we? Hell, I don't think we could do older versions of the characters. Bring back Sam J. Jones and bring back Billy Zane. They can be older versions of Flash and Phantom. I think that would work. Rock Philly says, I'm sure we could Google see if yeah, that's the Google search that I did. I just put in 2026 Mattel Batman Batmobile, and I didn't even type in the word Batman. It just auto typed it in. But yeah, you can see the one I'm talking about on there. It's pretty cool, but it's like a gray. It's not like a black Batmobile. It's like a gunmetal gray kind of Batmobile. Bobby Wald says, I'm surprised they haven't tried remaking the live-action Phantom movie, make Billy Zane the father that passes on the skull ring. That would be a cool thing to see. I would enjoy that. I know they tried to do a TV movie of the Phantom a few years back, and he had that hideous costume. It was horrible. I saw the commercial, and they show like this comic strip accurate Phantom costume on a mannequin, and then he's like, oh, I'm not wearing that. And then it shows him in this awful clunky armor that it looks like you spray painted a SWAT team armor purple or something. It was bad. Al Davis says there's a gray one that looks kind of bluish. I think that's the one I saw. Maybe, I don't know. I'll do an episode at some point and I'll open up that Batmobile and then you can tell me if it's the one. So let's talk about this weapons rack for a little bit. I think I've already put some of the weapons. I put the disc doohickey on there so we can see what that looks. But that's what it looks like when we start to stick the accessories on here. And all of these have little, like I said, these little rectangular holes that they can just plug on there. The batarangs and whatnot. I got that one upside down. And the snake. Why did I say snake? Snakes. You do say snakes. The smoke grenades. They fit on there like that. And I think these little things might hold on to the smoke grenades too. Yeah, they don't fit in there as snugly as I would like, but they do They do fit in there, don't they? So this is probably made so that other weapons can fit in here, like maybe Nightwing's Billy Clubs, his night clubs. That's what I like to. Why aren't they called night clubs? That's what they ought to be called. Or Robin's bow staff. I don't know if this Robin comes with the bow staff, but if they do a Tim Drake, he certainly should, right? But other things can go in there. Maybe the Joker has something that goes in there. I don't know. But that works pretty nicely. That's a cool thing to have. And I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna put most of these accessories on here. I'm gonna leave off one traditional Batarang, and I'm gonna leave off one of the S-shaped Batarangs. And I'm gonna leave off the grappling hook gun. And I'm gonna put all the other accessories on his belt. That's what I'm gonna do. And that way, also, I don't have to worry about losing these accessories, am I? iRock Tilly says, I want to see a movie someday that has the Marvel and DC universes collide. Hey, you never know. Stranger things have happened, right? It could happen, maybe. Raheem Hamilton is here and says, God, I'm going to miss McFarlane Batman. Yeah, I'm going to miss McFarlane too. But I got to say, looking at this figure, I think that Batman's going to be in good hands at Mattel. So we're still going to get some good stuff. But, best of both worlds. I think it'd be nice if McFarlane was still able to do some maybe more high-end stuff. Maybe they're still be allowed to do like the $35 type figures like this Supergirl figure here that I still need to open up. Maybe they could still do stuff like this while Mattel does stuff more like this. And I figure Mattel's probably going to want to do some adult collectible stuff too, but I don't see any reason why they couldn't both just kind of do their thing. I think that would be really cool to see. I think there's more than enough room for both. I mean, I'm still buying McFarlane figures right now because there's still McFarlane figures that I don't have, and I'm still buying. I'd be buying both of them at the same time anyway. So the weapons rack did kind of start to tip over once I put all the accessories on it, and like I said, you can see it kind of leans a little bit, and that's an unfortunate thing. And it's not a question of putting it in facing the other way to the base. That's not the problem. It's because it starts to bend right here. You can see where it starts to bend. So that's where the problem is, right there. But maybe if I apply a little heat to it, I can get it to fit into I can get it into a better position. Really, the best solution though would be Mattel needs to make this base, I'd say, at least half an inch wider. An inch wider overall, a half an inch wider on each side. I think that would do the trick. That would make it work. Al Davis says, I think there's a black variant, not sure. Bright yellow hubcap seem very inconspicuous. I'd seen where somebody repainted it in black, and it looks really cool that way. Raheem Hamilton says, question, what's your take on the McFarlane Batmobile Bat Missile? I don't have it yet. I would like to have it. It is really, it does look like a really nice piece to me. It does seem a lot more niche than a regular Batmobile. Like if somebody's going to buy the Bat Missile, I'm assuming that they're a big fan of Batman Returns, specifically Batman Returns. And I am a big fan of Batman Returns. So, of course, I would want to have it. But it's the sort of thing where, like, how do I put this? If somebody just is a casual fan of Batman and they want to buy a Batmobile toy, they'd probably rather buy just like the regular 1989/1992 Batmobile over the Bat Missile. And I think to own the Bat Missile, you've got to be a really hardcore, not just a hardcore Batman fan, but a hardcore Batman Returns fan. So that's why it's something I would like, because I am a hardcore Batman Returns fan. But I think I think it's a little more niche than just a regular Batmobile would be. But it is cool. I do think it's cool. I do, of course, have the regular McFarlane Multiverse Batmobile, and it's awesome. I love that thing. And then Hamilton said Mattel had the DC license back in the 2010s, and somehow they lost it to McFarlane. Yes, and that was very shocking news at the time for me, is that Mattel lost the DC license. It's going to McFarlane, and McFarlane wanted to do a great job with it. I knew they were going to do a good job with it, so I wasn't really surprised by that. But I do think they did a better job with it even than I was expecting. McFarlane did great with the DC license. And, I love the stuff that Mattel did back in the day. And they did kind of seem to run out of steam a little bit towards the end. I'm not going to lie. So it's probably a good thing that another company got a hold of the license. But I think it's also a good thing now that Mattel has it back and they're obviously refreshed and ready to do some new stuff with the characters. This is not the same old as far as a Mattel Batman goes. This is not just a repaint of the DC Universe Classics figure again for like the 20th time. This is an all new sculpted Batman with a completely different articulation scheme and a lot of cool features that are unique to this version of Batman. And again, I should point out, this is a much less expensive figure than, by the end there, even at that time, DC Universe Classics was like $20. This is a $10 figure, and I'd say this is just as high quality, as anything that I did wind up putting that back on there, didn't I? Just as high quality as anything that Mattel was doing back in the day. So yeah, it's a lot. We're gonna have some cool stuff on the way. I'm not worried about cool stuff on the way. I'm not worried about that at all. I will miss the McFarlane stuff when he stops making it, but it's one of those. Like I said, my analogy that I used before is Doctor Who. Like, you're watching Doctor Who and you love this guy that's playing Doctor Who, Christopher Eccleston or whoever you think is doing great, and they're gonna replace him with this guy, David Tennant. What's he gonna be like? I don't know. I'm gonna miss Christopher Eccleston. You watch the first couple episodes of Matt Smith, like, yeah, this guy's cool. I still miss Christopher Eccleston though. But you get more and more used to David Tennant. And then by the end of it, David Tennant, I don't want to go. Well, I don't want you to go either, bro. Stay. But he's got to go, man. Eventually somebody else has got to play Doctor Who. And then Matt Smith comes on. And you watch the first episode with Matt Smith and you're like, yeah, he's pretty cool. I like him all right. I still miss David Tennant, though. And then you get used to Matt Smith. You watch all of his episodes. And when it gets down to, I'll always remember when the Doctor was me. Yes, I'll always remember it too. I'll always treasure it. But now here comes Peter Capaldi with his attack eyebrows. And it's like, you're watching it and you're just like, yeah, he's fine. He's obviously a good actor, but he's going to take a little bit of getting used to. I'm still used to Matt Smith, but you get more and more used to Peter Capaldi. It's how it works. And, obviously you're going to like some doctors better than some other doctors. And, maybe you didn't care so much for Jodie Whittaker. Maybe you weren't that big a fan of Pete Davidson or whoever, Davison. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Not every doctor is going to be your cup of tea. Tom Baker is always been my favorite Doctor Who. Always. But that doesn't mean I don't like David Tennant. That doesn't mean I don't like Matt Smith. That doesn't mean I don't like Paul McGann or Sylvester McCoy or Colin Baker, any of those guys. Like, it's how it goes. So yeah, like DC action figures are regenerating, and they're regenerating into Mattel, and that's how that's going to be. Raheem Hamilton says, I never got into Doctor Who. That's okay. It's just a metaphor. You don't have to. It's not important. And Alveda says, same here. I love my McFarlane Batman figures. I, as well, am always going to be a big fan of the McFarlane Batman figures. And in fact, a friend of mine the other day, we were talking about definitive looks for Batman. And we were talking about my friend Bobby Blank, if he's watching. Shout out to him. But he was saying he liked the classic blue and gray Bronze Age type Batman. And I agreed with him. And then he was saying, yeah, but even with that having been said, I don't think like blue and gray is really the most tactical look. And I said, I don't know, man. Like, blue, like a really dark blue and a really dark gray are actually better night camouflage colors than black, honestly, in real life. So if you had a Batman in blue and gray, as I envision him in real life, it'd be like a very dark navy blue and a very dark charcoal gray. And I immediately thought of that I'm blessed and lucky to have. Not everybody's lucky enough to have this figure. It's hard to find. It was an exclusive to the McFarlane website, and I was lucky enough to snag one. Is that Norm Brayfogle Batman figure, the one with the gargoyle and the Scarface head and that big, huge wired cape. And that one, freaking awesome. My favorite Batman action figure of all time. That was the first one I thought of. So yeah, McFarlane made my favorite Batman action figure of all time. Of course I'm going to miss the Todd McFarlane Batman. It's a bittersweet thing right now. It's a bittersweet thing knowing that we're going over to a different company, but they're still going to do some good stuff. Raheem says blue and gray Batman in comics works. Outside of comics, blue and gray doesn't work. I think you could make it work, but it would take some work. You know what I mean? Like I said, it had to be that navy blue and charcoal gray. And we're talking a blue and gray that's almost black anyway. So why not just go black at that point? You know what I mean? Does that make any sense? But yeah, like blue and gray, as far as comic books go, blue and gray is absolutely the best look. And blue and gray definitely works better on the comic book page than solid black does, because it pops on the comic book page. That's why it works. When he's a creature of pen and ink, blue and gray is absolutely the way to go. And then Raheem asked, did you see the Hot Toys blue and gray Batman Michael Keaton toy? God, it was ugly. Well, yeah. I think that had more to do with the sculpt of the cowl, though, than anything like that. It's like, you want Batman to have this kind of sculpt on his cowl, where his brow's all furrowed like this, and this is what that Keaton Batman looked like to me. You know what I mean? That kind of look. No, thanks. Al Davis is the White Knight Batmobile. It's like an Art Deco tumbler across the '89 Batmobile. I haven't read the story, but I fucking love that design of the Batmobile. I concur. That is a really cool Batmobile design. I do like that one. And then Al Davis says, Raheem, absolutely, definitely going to get one. Didn't love the design at first, but Absolute has grown on me. The hench hero silhouette. I must have missed something. Oh, McFarlane rocks. I got to get his. Is he doing an Absolute Batman figure? Is he going to get one out? I know a lot of people love the Absolute Batman. I can't really get into it. It just seems a little too like they're taking it a little too far in a lot of places. It goes too far in a lot of places, and it's like I can't really take it that seriously. Like it seems like the sort of thing I'm supposed to take seriously, but it seems almost more like a parody to me in a lot of ways. And if it's supposed to be a parody, then it's doing a great job, and maybe I should read it, because if it's a parody, it's a freaking brilliant one. But it seems like I'm supposed to take it seriously, and I see like the Joker is like a kaiju, and I'm just like, I can't get it. Can we at least give him pants or something? People bitched about the shoeless dreadlock Joker on the Batman cartoon from back in the early 2000s, but they're cool with him having a tail. Like, okay, fine, whatever. Al Davis says, I want to get the Savage Dragon new figure when I sort out a new job. I like Savage Dragon. That was a pretty cool comic back in the day, but it just kind of gradually became softcore pornography so fast most people didn't notice. The M shape of Keaton's lip made him look super derpy on the Hot Toys figure. Yeah, that might have been part of the problem too. But the main thing I noticed was the way the brow was shaped. If you look at how the cowl is sculpted in the actual movies, I mean, maybe the one they sculpted for that movie was like that on that mannequin or whatever. But like the one, like the '89 cowl and the Batman Returns cowl, it was more furrowed, like that kind of expression, more of an Art Deco than like a literal sculpt of somebody's eyebrows. But you know what I mean. Al Davis is Bane because stadium sized. Yeah, exactly. I see this gigantic 7-foot tall Batman, and Bane is like this. I'm just like, how am I supposed to take this seriously? I mean, if you like it, you like it, and I'm not trying to say you shouldn't like it. I'm not trying to badmouth it, but as far as my own personal tastes, like I like my Neil Adams Batman. That's my Batman right there. And the closer you get to the Neil Adams Batman, the more I'm gonna like it. Raheem Hamilton says, so I have the Batmissile, Batman Forever Batmobile, Batman and Robin Batmobile, and I'm waiting on my 1966 Batmobile. I have to get the 89 and the Batman Beyond Batmobile. Yeah, I don't know if you heard me talking about it earlier in the stream, but I have the out of the McFarlane multiverse, I have the 89 Batmobile, and if I was only going to have one, it would be the 89 Batmobile. If I was only going to have two, I'd pick the 66 ones. I like that one about equally, the 89 one in real life, but I kind of feel like as far as the McFarlane figures go, the 89 seems a little more appropriate. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it makes sense up here in my head for some reason. And I do have the Batman Forever Batmobile, which I love. Like even though it's not my most favorite, it's pretty close up to the top, and I've got like this kind of soft spot in my heart for that Batman Forever Batmobile. And Raheem says Michael Keaton is the shortest Batman in the series. Damn right. He's like what, 5'7"? Michael Keaton's 5'7", right? Yeah, he's not a tall dude. He's not a tall dude at all. But still, he's still like the most intimidating Batman somehow. It's crazy. Maybe not so much as Ben Affleck. Maybe Ben Affleck might be a little more intimidating, but just because he is like a foot taller than Keaton. Yeah, Al Davis says to Raheem, I want to get the Batman Beyond, Batmobile, and Batplane. They are slick, streamlined, sexy as fuck. And my fingers crossed on Judgment on Gotham. Yes, I would buy that in a second. I love my Judgment on Gotham Batmobile. I have the old Legends of Batman Batmobile, and that one's kind of loosely based on the Judgment on Gotham Batmobile. It's not 1-1. But the silhouette's very similar. You can tell they're very similar. Raheem Hamilton says Neil Adams was the man. He was indeed. And I met him, and I like how he's redone Green Arrow. Dude, that's my favorite design of Green Arrow. Don't at me with any. I love the Longbow Hunters. I think that's one of the most beautiful comic books ever illustrated. Mike Grell is a god for drawing that thing, but you can't beat the Neil Adams design for Green Arrow as far as I'm concerned. And you know, he built his version of Green Arrow off of that, so I think he's got some respect for that version also. But I've met Neil Adams I had the pleasure of meeting Neil Adams a few times, and I'll go ahead and tell I'll tell one of my Neil Adams stories right here. Is that I was at Dragon Con, and Neil Adams was there, and he had a line of people getting stuff signed, and I showed up with a few books to get signed. And here Neil was charging $5 a piece for his signature, which is not a lot. He's charged more at other shows. Here he was just doing $5 a piece. And so I'm waiting through this whole line, get to Neil Adams. I've got my books picked out for him to sign. One is the Power Records book and record set Stacked Deck. It's the first Batman comic I ever owned. I don't know if you're old enough to remember record albums, but it had a little record in it with the story, so you listen to it while you read the comic book. This is what we did before VHS cassettes, folks. So I had that. I had the issue, I don't remember the number of it, the Catwoman's Feline Furies, because I really like that cover. He just did the cover. I had the first appearance of Ra's al Ghul, and a few other assorted comics that I had him. I think I had like 5 comics for him to sign, and he was charging like $5 a piece. So it was $25. Oh, Batman number 200. I got him to sign that one. So I got him to sign these comics, and I'm chatting with him, and we're talking about a bunch of stuff. We're talking about the Batman comic that he did at the time, which was Batman Odyssey. And Neil Adams is one of the greatest comic book artists of all time. But I'm going to be honest, when it comes to writing comics, he's one of the greatest comic book artists of all time. So, but I did enjoy that comic. It was a fun comic to read. He might have had a tin ear for dialogue, but the plot was crazy and all over the place, and I was enjoying the hell out of it. You got Batman riding a pterodactyl, for crying out loud. So we're talking about I think the first issue had just come out, and we're talking about Man-Bat in it, and I always really liked Man-Bat, and I was you know, he was like, so there's this big Man-Bat guy in here, you know who that is, right? You know who that is. And I'm like, well, I'm thinking it's Ubu. And he's like, it is Ubu. And then I get my book signed for him. I chat with him a little bit, and and I don't want to take up any more of his time. He's a busy man. He's got a line full of people waiting to get his book signed. So I'm like, well, I don't want to take up any more of your time. So it's very, very nice meeting you, sir. You're one of my heroes and everything. He's like, no, don't go. Stay. Talk with me some more. And I'm just like, okay, I'll stay here and talk with Neil Adams. If you ever seen the movie Wayne's World, where they go backstage at the Alice Cooper concert, and and they're like, oh well, we probably better be going. It's like, and Alice was like, no, stay, party with us, and they're like, okay, well, we'll stay and party with Alice Cooper. We're not worthy. We're not worthy. That was me right there. So that's my Neil Adams story. That's my Neil Adams story. So now you've heard and I'll probably tell it again one of these days. Going back to the chat, the stuff that I missed. Raheem says, question: in the Longbow Hunter, is Green Arrow wearing his mask, or did the hoodie look like he was wearing a mask? That's an excellent question. And to me, the way it looks in that comic, and I could be wrong about this, is I think that he's actually supposed to be wearing face paint in the shape of the Green Arrow mask. Not quite as roughly as it was Stephen Amell on the Arrow TV series, where he just kind of smudged some stuff, but like he would have artfully painted the Green Arrow mask on there, because it looks very, very fitting to the flesh. Otherwise, it would be like a very, very thin piece that would be spirit gummed to his face. But it looks like the way that Green Arrow's mask is traditionally drawn. It's that same sort of shape. But like I said, it's just so flush with the face, the way that Mike Grell draws it in that comic, that I think it might actually be like face paint that he's wearing. And that might even have like a sort of more real world kind of application to it, if you think about it, like the same way like when you see football players with that bit of black smudged under their eyes to keep the glare off of them. For a guy whose specialty is archery and eyesight, would be very important for that, obviously. That might serve a more practical function than just disguising his identity. So and then Bobby Walt says, records, I think I've heard of those, like a giant CD. And Al Davis says, it's flat like a Frisbee, right? Yep. When I was clearing out my grandfather's storage space, I ran across, my storage space. I ran across my grandfather. They're not my record albums, but what were my grandfather's old record albums? And there's all kinds of vintage, Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson, Merle Haggard, all this great old country music when they knew how to make country music. Not like today when country music is just singing pop with a southern accent. No, none of that crap. I'm talking pedal steel guitars and fiddles and the harmonica and all that kind of stuff. The real country music, the stuff that that's derived from the blues. And all the best music, I'm here to tell you, all the best American music is derived from the blues. Like everything goes back to the blues. That's why I loved Sinners so much. I went into Sinners because it's vampires and it's Haley Steinfeld, and that's enough reason to watch a movie right there. And Michael B. Jordan, that guy's a good actor. This is going to be a great movie. I'm going to enjoy this. And I wound up enjoying that movie so much more than I thought I was going to, because it wasn't just a vampire movie. It was a love letter to the blues. And man, I loved that. I thought that was so freaking cool. I love the blues, man. Like, and it's like the blues isn't even my favorite genre of music, but like I'm a rock and roll guy mostly as far as my favorite type of music. But rock and roll is built off of the blues. It's all built off of the blues. Everything is built off of the blues as far as that's why I think music isn't quite as good anymore anyway, because they lost the blues. That blues influence isn't in there anymore. And like you go back, you rediscover the blues, music will start to get good again, I'm sure. Raheem says the best Batman costume to be is the Jean-Paul Valley Azrael Batman costume. That is a bold and daring choice, my friend. Al Davis says, Raheem, as far as Green Arrow, it's either the hood's shadow or like camouflage, face paint, or a mask. For a mask, kinda, I think. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like it's a mask, but it's not like a physical, like, strap on a mask. It's like he just paints the mask on there. And if it is like a separate, like a physical piece, it's like just a very thin prosthetic piece that he just kind of spirit gums on there or something like that. And Raheem, I'm sorry, Al Davis says Raheem been meaning to get the McFarlane Azrael. Also, absolutely loved that design. Mine's Hush, black, gray, simple. You know, and I have 2 of the McFarlane Azrael Batmans. I don't have the first Nightfall version. I wasn't able to get that one. They got the re-release one coming out. Maybe I'll be able to snag that one, hopefully. But I have 2 of the Night's End ones. Unfortunately, was not able to get the blue platinum edition. But I have the red one, the red and gray one, and it's awesome. And I have the black and red version, which is awesome. The Kenner, the Legends of Batman version of As-Bats. And I think that one's really cool too. I'd love it if McFarlane had done like a proper Azrael in his original costume as well while we're at it. And Al Davis says Miliwake, which is Indian for the good land. Does this guy know how to party or what? An old Al Joaquin name. Yeah, that's it. That was, I couldn't remember the specific tribe. And then Raheem says, don't forget it was just Neil Adams to bring Batman back. It wasn't just Neil Adams to bring Batman back to his darker self. Dennis O'Neil also had a hand getting Batman out of the campy 1966 version. Yeah, because those 2 guys were both on the same page as far as that goes. And it was the logical thing to do because they had to, once that fad was over, and let's face it, it was a fad, they had to keep Batman relevant. And the best way, they both felt the best way to do that was to go back to the roots, 1939. But I will say that Neil Adams was working on that kind of stuff even before he got teamed up with Denny O'Neil. If you go and you check out the earliest stuff he did, in The Brave and the Bold, because Julius Schwartz would not let him onto a Batman book for whatever reason, and he really wanted to do Batman. But there was one Batman book that was not being edited by Julius Schwartz because Murray Ballentoff was editing The Brave and the Bold. So he went over to Murray Ballentoff's office. Neil Adams went over there and said, hey, I want to draw The Brave and the Bold. And, you know, even at that time, Neil Adams was one of the best comic book artists around. So Murray Ballentoff's like, you want to draw it? Yeah, let's do that. Okay. And he took over drawing Batman and in The Brave and the Bold. And, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, like he'd read the script, and Bob Haney was writing Batman. And Bob Haney was a guy who was not adverse to writing a campy Batman. And he was still writing campy Batman at that point. But Neil Adams is going to Neil Adams, and he was going to do his own thing regardless. He was not going to be beholden to whatever's in this script. And he had a lot of respect for Bob Haney. Thought Bob Haney was a good comic book writer, but there were still things that he wanted to do with his Batman to make him like back into that weird gothic figure of the night that he was in 1939. Neil Adams said that every 12-year-old boy in America knows what Batman is supposed to be. And that's what he told Julius Schwartz. When Julius Schwartz asked him to come over and draw Batman on the regular titles. But he would go through these Bob Haney scripts and be like, okay, Batman's walking down a street in broad daylight. No, Batman's crouched on a rooftop in the middle of the night with the moonlight shining down on him. Batman walks into a room through the front door. No, Batman comes in through the window. It's one of the reasons that I didn't really take to the Robert Pattinson Batman movie. You have that scene where he goes and knocks on the door. And, do you know who I am? No, man. Batman don't play like that. Batman sneaks in like a ninja and just silently appears behind the Penguin. And then the Penguin doesn't even know he's there until Penguin. And then he turns around all startled because Batman is there. People treated Batman like a joke in that movie because Batman was a joke in that movie, quite frankly. He deserved to be treated like that. that was not the Batman that I know and love. The Batman that I know and love is much more intimidating than that. I'm just being real. Let's see, where was I? Let's see, Al Davis. Raheem says, Al Davis, I have McFarlane, Azrael's Batman. They are amazing. Al Davis says, Little Richard, Sam and Dave, Otis, Marv, yeah, the Four Tops, Isley Brothers, yeah, all that kind of stuff. All that kind of that comes from the blues right there. All that kind of stuff. That's some good stuff. So Little Richard is one of my favorites. And like I don't think any one person invented rock and roll, but if I had to say one person invented rock and roll, it's Little Richard. That's the guy. That's where that he might not have been the first rock and roll artist, but that was where it started to congeal. So he's if I had to pick one person, maybe Chuck Berry, maybe Fats Domino. But yeah, Little Richard. I would go with Little Richard. And he's from the state of Georgia, so I got a little bit of bias there. Let's just be honest. Raheem says, my wife told me last night, no more McFarlane DC. She says there's no more space for me to put him at. Trust me, brother, we all got that problem. Raheem says they did not just lose the blues, but they also lost talent. Yes, indeed. But hey, maybe if they studied the blues and listened more to the blues and tried to learn more of the blues, maybe they could get some of that talent back. I'm just saying. And then Raheem says, I got a lot of chat to go through here. He didn't say that. I said that. Raheem says, I have the red and black Azrael Batman as well. I need the blue one. Yeah, that blue one's hard to find. Maybe they can re-release that before they're really done, because they've been re-releasing a lot of stuff lately. Al Davis says, Raheem agreed. I used to think, where have all the soul singers gone? John Legend a bit, Pharrell a bit, but I can't think of any others. Pharrell's like one of the more recent guys that I've got some respect for. I like Pharrell. He's done some good stuff. And then Raheem says, I think Adam West could do a serious Batman. If you ever watched the last season of Super Friends and that one episode, The Fear, Adam voiced Batman and he was serious with his voice. Indeed, this is a thing that I myself have said. I absolutely 100% agree with you there. And by the way, interesting sidebar. When I was a kid growing up, and this might be hard for anybody who grew up after 1989 to imagine, but growing up in the late 70s and early 80s, it was actually very difficult for me to find Batman's origin. And I picked up bits and pieces of it here and there over the years from various sources. And I didn't really get a full cohesive origin of Batman until that very episode of the Super Friends. And that was where I finally found out how Bruce Wayne became the Batman. So that was really cool. So thank you for bringing that up. That's a nice memory to recall. Al Davis says Raheem likes the red one, but prefer the blue one more. I think I just looked it up. I saw the Knights, the silver and black as the White Knight one. Yeah, that one's really cool. I like the White Knight Azrael design. I think that's a really cool design. I think that one's awesome. To me, that looks more like how Asbats might look in live action, like a little more Darth Vader-ish. You know what I mean? And then Raheem says, Robert Pattinson is a joke as Batman. The best Batman is Ben Affleck. Convince me I'm wrong. How can I convince you you're wrong when you're 100% correct? I was just saying how Ben Affleck was one of my favorite live action Batmans. It's hard for me to pick one favorite live action Batman, but like I said, my top three, and if there is a differentiation between them, it's a hair's breadth. Adam West, Michael Keaton, Ben Affleck. I only list them that way because of chronological order too. Adam West might be my nostalgic favorite. I'll say that. Al Davis says agreed on Little Richard 2, rock and roll. Bobby Wald says, I got to see Little Richard play live in person once. That was really cool. I just point that out. Back when Fox 97 was a radio station down here, the Ultimate Oldies concert. We went there, and it was Little Richard and Jerry Lee Lewis, and it was really cool to see like these two legends performing live on stage. That was some fun stuff. And Little Richard, of course, he did a lot of his old hits, and he did. I always like to tell people this. He did a cover of "Every Breath You Take," The Police, Sting. He did a cover of that. It was awesome. Bobby Wald says, I like the episode of Batman the Animated Series where Adam West voiced the Gray Ghost as the character that inspired Batman. Yeah, because the Gray Ghost, there's a lot of elements to that that kind of play into Batman lore. And I kind of feel like the Gray Ghost was like them doing the Shadow. Like, they obviously couldn't use the Shadow himself, but like that would have been like the equivalent of the Shadow. You know what I mean? So, and then Al Davis says, Affleck is definitely the best Batman. He was Batman from the first moment, hiding in the corner of the room. Yeah, and even the people that he's there to save were afraid of him. And leave us not forget, that version of Batman is supposed to be Batman at his absolute darkest point. So that's the Batman that he's playing there. I would like to get really deep into discussing the Ben Affleck Batman, but this probably isn't the place for it. We'll get to that. And then Raheem says, don't forget about Val Kilmer. I know he was one and done, but he played the hell out of Bruce Wayne Batman. I absolutely agree. Yeah. Val Kilmer is fantastic. I loved him as Batman. And very underrated. I think he's the most underrated Batman. Al Davis says, I do like the introduction scene in the Batman, the music, the rain, the darkness, the boots stomping in approach, and then battering clown punks. I guess, but it should have been a long take. Old boy corridor. Yeah, that might have been cool. There are some nice things that I will say about that movie. And I already talked about how I like the Bat Cycle in that movie, but I'll say this. These are the things that I generally say are actually good about this movie. I liked that version of Catwoman, except for her mask. I thought her mask was stupid. She should have had a Darwin Cook type mask with the goggles. That would have been way better. But I liked Zoe Kravitz. I thought she did a good job, and I thought they did a good job with that character. I liked Jeffrey Wright as Commissioner Gordon. And of course, that guy's like one of the greatest actors alive. So of course he's going to play the hell out of Commissioner Gordon. And in fact, he would probably be my favorite Commissioner Gordon if Gary Oldman didn't exist. Gary Oldman being my absolute favorite Commissioner Gordon, and Jeffrey Wright was on that level. He was almost as good as. That's the highest compliment I can pay to somebody playing Commissioner Gordon, is they were almost as good as Gary Oldman. At least the highest compliment that I can pay besides that's Gary Oldman right there. Raheem says, could you imagine Little Richard being cast as Batman? Shut up! He liked to say that when he was in the concert. Shut up! People started applauding. He'd be like, shut up! That guy he not just knew how to play music. Obviously, he knew how to play music, but he knew how to work a crowd, too. He was a really cool dude. I like Little Richard. And then where was I? Bobby Wald says, "Oh wait! I missed something." Al Davis says, "Going in out of train with Affleck, that would have been epic." Yeah, well, yeah, like that would have been really cool. I really would have liked to seen Ben Affleck's live action, like his solo Batman movie. Maybe we still will one day. I'm still holding out hope. I'm still a believer in the Batfleck. Raheem says, I think they could have used the Shadow. I believe Shadow was in public domain at the time. No, actually the Shadow just recently became public domain. I think he just became public domain this year, actually. So, and even then, it's got to be like the Pulp magazine version of the Shadow. You can use anything from the radio show, I don't think. I believe that's how that works right now. And I think it's just the first Shadow story, the first Shadow Pulp story, The Living Shadow. But I mean, honestly, you've got everything in that story that you need to build like a really cool Shadow universe. I think the only thing that's really missing out of that is Margot Lane. And I think most people would want to see Margot Lane in their version of the Shadow. I know I would, but she's not going to be public domain for a few years yet, unfortunately. So where was I? Bobby, but yeah, at that time the Shadow was still under trademark. They couldn't use it. He was still copyrighted. And then Bobby Wald says they must have that movie set. Val Kilmer was very cool because you can see his nipples poking through the bat suit. We're never going to forget the bat nipples, will we? And that's still one of the best Batman costumes was the Batman Forever Panther suit. I'd say that's my third favorite live action Batman costume. I think my favorite live action Batman costume was probably the Ben Affleck one. Second is the 1989 Batman costume. Then the Batman Forever costume. Then the Batman Returns costume. I like the 89 better. Oddly enough, I like it better than the later ones that Bob Ringwood did because it was a little rougher. And it seemed like it'd been through more shit than like when they got into Batman Returns, then I guess he was getting really good at making the suits then. So they were very, very smooth and very polished and looked very flawless. Whereas the 1989 suit was not very flawless. There was little pockmarks and imperfections in it and things like that. And I think that lent to the verisimilitude. And going back to the Ben Affleck costume, that's why in Batman v Superman, that's part of the thing I liked about his costume is you saw these kind of marks and bullet holes and dents and knife scratches and things like that. And that's what made that really work, I think. So, and then where was I? I think I'm still missing some stuff. And then Raheem says, I like how they introduced Batman in BVS where he's hanging around the dark background behind the cop, made Batman more scary. Thumbs up to Zack Snyder. Probably one of the greatest directors alive today. I'm going to say it. I know a lot of people hate on Zack Snyder for reasons I can't quite comprehend. A friend of mine says that he's like an edgelord hack. I don't even know what that means in regards to Zack Snyder. I don't understand his reasoning. But I think Zack Snyder is a beautiful visual storyteller. And I think that there isn't a director alive that can tell a story through pictures as well as Zack Snyder. I'm going to say that right now. And like maybe overall, Steven Spielberg, Christopher Nolan, there's guys that might be better directors than Zack Snyder overall. But I think as specifically as far as telling a visual story through the medium of cinema, I don't think you get better than one Zachary Edward Snyder. I'll put it that way. And then Al Davis says, I want a Phantom, Shadow, Rocketeer, Doc Savage team-up movie. Throw in Mandrake, Flash Gordon, and Lothar for the sequel. That's what I'm talking about. We get the Defenders of the Earth. We can expand on the Defenders of the Earth with our public domain Shadow and and Doc Savage. I don't think it's going to be much longer for Doc Savage's public domain. I think that's just another couple of years. I want to say I looked that up the other day, and it's like 2030 or something like that. It's not much longer. And then Raheem says, hands down, Cesar Romero was the best Joker. It's hard for me to say who was the best Joker. And like, what standard are we going by anyway? Like, maybe the best performance, the best acting of the Joker might be Heath Ledger, or it might be Joaquin Phoenix. But I don't think either one of those characters was that accurate to the comic book, right? Now, Jack Nicholson was a lot more accurate to the comic book, but he was basically playing Jack Nicholson in that movie. But why else would you hire Jack Nicholson if you don't want him to play Jack Nicholson? They obviously hired Jack Nicholson in that movie, not because they wanted Jack Nicholson to be the Joker, but because they wanted the Joker to be Jack Nicholson. And it worked out brilliantly, I must say. Like, I love Jack Nicholson as the Joker. I think he's one of the best versions of the character overall. Now, Cesar Romero, a lot of people aren't ready to have this conversation yet, but I think at least some of y'all in the chat are. So we're going to have that conversation real quick. I think Cesar Romero was absolutely the most comic book accurate version of the Joker. If you want like a truly comic book accurate version of the Joker, Cesar Romero is as good as it gets. I know this is a Jack Nicholson movie, but you know what I'm saying. Cesar Romero was very underrated, I think. Yeah, he was a fantastic Joker. and he was definitely one of the best Jokers, if not the best Joker. And I'm gonna say this, me personally, these days I actually prefer like a more Silver Age, goofy kind of Joker like that over like the, deadly serious, mass murdering psychopath kind of Joker, because you don't have these conversations of people being like, why doesn't Batman kill the Joker if you got that kind of Joker? Because nobody's going to ask why Adam West doesn't kill Cesar Romero. That's a ridiculous question. Al Davis says, I had a costume fitting for Batman Begins. One of my best mates were in it. Scenes were cut, but he's in the making of book, which is awesome. That's really cool. That's really cool to hear. I did not know that. And then Raheem Hamilton says, best Val Kilmer movie and underrated, The Ghost in the Darkness. Yeah, I think I know the movie you're talking about. That's it with that's with Michael Douglas, right? Great movie. So it's Batman teamed up with Ant-Man. How about that? But yeah, that is a seriously good movie, and it does connect directly with Batman, because I believe that was the movie that Val was filming at the time, where he was actually in a bat's cave doing some preparation, an actual bat's cave, a cave full of bats, when his agent told him he'd been offered the role of Batman. So talk about destiny. Like Christian Bale filmed that scene where he's in the bat cave surrounded by bats. Val Kilmer lived it. Al Davis says it's free on YouTube. Dude, I'll have to check that out. I haven't seen that movie in years. Yeah, I'm gonna try to check that out. Raheem says McFarlane needs to do the Panther Batman Forever figure. Absolutely, I agree. I'm shocked they haven't done it already. Hell, you could reuse a lot of the parts from the Clooney Batman. You really just have to give him a new belt and a new emblem, because it's basically the same sculpt other than that, right? And the Kilmer head, new emblem, new belt. Done. That's easy. I was seriously considering just making my own custom, but I think those Clooney Batman figures got harder to find, unfortunately. And then Raheem says, I heard that the Batman 1989 costume was used in the 1984 film Dune. Well, I don't know anything about that, but I think that Bob Ringwood did work on that movie, so he might have developed some of those techniques, or he might have reused like the bodysuit itself. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look into that. That's an interesting theory. I'm gonna have to look into that. But yeah, I believe Bob Ringwood was the costume designer for that film too. So I'm gonna say that's plausible, even though I have no evidence one way or the other. I'm gonna put that under the plausible column. Al Davis says, I was gonna be a homeless person, but I kept telling people I preferred the term bum. I think these days we're supposed to say unhoused persons. I think that's what we're supposed to say these days. I think that's what certain sensitive people want us to say anyway. Raheem says Zack Snyder's Justice League is on Netflix, and it's doing number overseas. Is it on Netflix in the U? I knew it was on Netflix overseas. I did not know it was on Netflix on the United States. I'm gonna have to check that real fast. I need to check that right now. I need to know if Justice League is on Netflix. We gotta check. And you see, like, my thumbnail is Zack Snyder, so I wasn't kidding. I wasn't exaggerating that I'm a fan of the guy. So let's see if I can find it on here. It doesn't look like it's on the front page. If it is, I'm going to watch it. And of course, I own that movie digitally, so I don't really need to have it on Netflix. I bought it digitally, so I don't have to have HBO Max anymore. That's the main reason I had HBO Max. I just bought it digitally. I can watch it anytime I want. Let's see. Justice League. We'll look it up. But I knew it was on. Yeah, I'm not seeing it. I typed in Justice, and I got Juvenile Justice and The Flash, and that's Supergirl on there. There's still some episodes of Supergirl I haven't seen, so I might watch those. But I did know that it was in some overseas countries. So, to any of my audience who has Netflix, and you see that Zack Snyder's Justice League is on there. Give it a watch. We got to support it. But yeah, I did hear it was doing excellent in the overseas numbers. Bobby Wald says, I wanted a fan of the zombie verse he was doing for Netflix. I'm not really that into zombies in general, though, honestly. But I did like his Dawn of the Dead. I thought Dawn of the Dead was. I never got around to watching Army of the Dead. I really should watch that at some point. I did like Rebel Moon. I know people gave Rebel Moon a lot of crap, but I enjoyed watching that. But I'm also a big Sofia Boutella fan, so that shouldn't be a surprise either, right? Like if you're a big Sofia Boutella fan like I am, you want to watch the uncut, the R-rated version of Rebel Moon. You definitely want to watch that. Al Davis says Zack Snyder is an awesome visual director. He needs to work with better writers. Not him. Yeah, well, honestly, I think the writing in the DC movies was better than it got credit for. I'm going to be real about it. But I've watched those so many times that I pick up on a lot of things I think most people don't pick up on. Those are movies that benefit from rewatching, I think. Bobby Wald says, whatever happened to the Big Bad Workshop, Rocketeer, and Sky Captain? I don't know. They need to get on that, don't they? I wanted to get the Rocketeer that was the superpower style Rocketeer, but it sold out and I wasn't able to. Raheem says Steven Spielberg has fallen off. His current movie, Disclosure Day, is a box office bomb. Yeah, unfortunately. I haven't seen it, but I've heard mixed things about it. And his remake of West Side Story. Yeah, I never even bothered to watch that. Like the thing that irritated me was like they said they weren't going to dub in the Spanish dialogue because Spielberg said it's just as important as the English. Not dub in, but they weren't going to subtitle the Spanish dialogue because he said it's just as important as the English dialogue. And I'm like, well, then subtitle the English dialogue in Spanish. That way everybody can understand everything. If the Spanish dialogue is so important, don't you want me to know what they're saying? I don't speak Spanish. That's the one thing that me and the Robert Pattinson Batman have in common. I should learn to speak Spanish, though. It seems like it would be fun. And I hear it's one of the easier languages to pick up. And it does have a lot of the same Romance language roots as English. So, and I love Mexican food. I love Mexican music. I should probably learn to speak the language they speak in Mexico. Bobby Wald says, I was trying to contact a Big Bad Workshop and asked them to do Alan Quartermain. Yeah, that's a good idea because we were talking about that the other day. I think that would be a good idea for them to do. Man, I'm so behind on the chat. I'm still like 8 minutes behind on the chat or something. Al Davis says we have 4 years to get ready for that date, chaps. Yep, see. Raheem asks, what do you think of Jared Leto as Joker? I know a lot of people say that Jared Leto was the worst Joker, and they might be right. But I'm going to say it's not because Jared Leto was a bad Joker. It's just because all the other Jokers were so great. He's just going to be the worst Joker by default because he just wasn't quite as good as the other ones. But he's still good. I thought he was fine. I thought he did a good job. I'll say this. He was closer to the comic book version than either Joaquin or Heath got. That's the nicest thing I can say about the Jared Leto Joker. I think that a lot of people were dismissive of that character because of that damaged tattoo on his forehead. And I think that, most people like tattoos overall wouldn't have been a deal breaker. But I think the damage on his forehead, that was just the straw that broke the camel's back, if you know what I mean. So that's why I think I think he was not as well. I think that alone was why he wasn't as well received. If you did watch Zack Snyder's Justice League, and we all watched Zack Snyder's Justice League here, right? Everyone in this chat has watched that movie. I hope. He's in that, and he's great. He's great in that. So yeah, I like Jared Leto's Joker, but I do not like Jared Leto's Joker half as much as I love his Skeletor. Man, Jared Leto was great as Skeletor. Speaking of movies that deserve more views, Masters of the Universe. Check it out. Great movie. Al Davis says, fold in Alan Quartermain and Sky Captain into the mix too. Loving it. keep going, fellas. Yeah, see, like we could have all kinds of pulp adventurer characters in there. We could have Zorro in there, like not the original Zorro, not Don Diego Vega, but there were versions of Zorro that took place, like the Republic Zero serial Zorro Rides Again is about one of his descendants in contemporary times. So there is a 1930s contemporary version of Zorro that you could use. Raheem says, the only problem with Caesar is you're removed to shave his mustache, and you can clearly see the mustache in 4K. Yeah, it's like, but like, I kind of think that makes it almost creepier somehow. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people dismiss Cesar Romero for the mustache and the mustache alone, and I just think that's unfair because I think it actually does give a little bit of creepiness to the character. Like, I like the mustache. I think it's just a little bit unsettling. That's my opinion on it. And then Al Davis says that Ghost in the Darkness was based on a true story, Scary Lions. And then Snyder and Gunn's Dawn of the Dead was excellent, right up to 2 minutes from the end. I thought it could have gone somewhere. Yeah, and that was a movie that I went into being like, why are they remaking Dawn of the Dead? You don't need to remake Dawn of the Dead. But I went to see it anyway, and I was pleasantly surprised, and I thought it was an excellent movie. And then the next movie he did was 300, and that was where I really became a fan of one Zachary Edward Snyder. Oh, okay. Raheem says, I meant to say they used the suits from Dune for Batman 1980. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna check that out. I'm gonna look into figuring out exactly what the deal was with that. So I'm very curious about that now. And then Al Davis says none voluntarily unroofed and lacking a ceiling. Yes, individuals who are non-voluntarily unroofed and are lacking ceilings. That's what we're going to call them now. It's just going to get fancier. Raheem says Sucker Punch is a very underrated Snyder film as well. I'm going to say not only is it underrated, it's misunderstood in a lot of ways. I think a lot of people just saw the girls in the sexy outfits and thought it was just some kind of exploitation cinema. And honestly, I would have enjoyed it if it was exploitation. I love exploitation cinema. But Sucker Punch tried to do something a little more serious and a little more deep than people actually expected it was. I think part of Zack Snyder's problem, as far as how he's perceived by certain film viewers, is they think he's just a surface level guy. So they're only looking at the surface level. And they're not looking at the stuff that's underneath the surface level that's actually there, because they're not thinking to look for it. Remember the part in Batman v Superman where Superman goes to the hearing and old boy is there, Ben Affleck's friend. This guy's friends with Ben, the guy who played the security guard. That's Wally, the guy who played Wally. I forget his name. That's one of Ben Affleck's friends in real life. Works with him in a lot of his movies. He's in Gone Girl. Also, he plays the guy who is Amy's boyfriend that she accused him, that he didn't really do and ruined his whole life. But he's in that too. Great actor, great character actor. He's one of these character actors that's kind of invisible, but he's in real life. He's really good friends with Ben Affleck, and they work together a lot. So, but he's got the bomb in the wheelchair. Lex Luthor put the bomb hidden in the wheelchair, and when it explodes, Superman is just brokenhearted that he missed this thing. And when he's talking with Lois later, he says to her, "I'm afraid I didn't see it because I wasn't looking." And I kind of feel like that's how people are with Zack Snyder. They don't see all this explosive stuff going on under the surface because they're not looking for it, and they need to look for it. You got to think when you're watching Zack Snyder movies. He's not going to spoon feed you everything. You have to pay attention to every little detail. Like I point this out all the time. The first time I watched Man of Steel, and it begins as literally as you can begin a movie with the literal birth of the main character. And the thing that I asked myself, because I'm paying attention, and I asked myself, why is Zack Snyder starting the movie with the literal birth of Superman? And if you pay attention to that and you question to yourself why Zack Snyder is beginning the movie with the literal birth of Superman, it becomes very important and very clear why he did that. And it's very important to a lot of the themes of that movie and what the culture of Krypton is. And then Raheem says, sorry, it's on Netflix overseas. See, this is my problem with getting behind in the chat. I'm now 10 minutes behind in the chat. Al Davis has agreed. Some epic visuals in Sucker Punch. The Sailor Girl versus Giant Samurai fight was fucking cool. Yes, it was. And then Raheem says, Icon is becoming hard to find and expensive. McFarlane Toys with some stack stock. Yeah, that's another one that I wanted to pick up, and I missed out on that one, unfortunately. Man, I had the Platinum Edition of Icon in my hands, and I passed on it because I didn't have the money for it. I could have bought it, but I wanted to eat lunch for the next couple of days instead. and it was, like I said, it was the Platinum Edition, so it wasn't like the I can't think of a better way to say the more iconic version of Icon, but the more iconic version of Icon. I forget what the difference was with that, but it was a different coloration, like maybe a black suit or something. I forget what. I would have really liked to have had Icon, and they needed to do a figure of Rocket as well. So that's kind of a missed opportunity there. And then Raheem's Al Davis says, "See, English is the Spanish is easy to learn." Raheem says, easy language to speak is Mandarin. Yeah, I think that might be a good choice. I think it might be difficult to learn how to write because I have to memorize all those characters. But speaking it might be easy. I'll look into that. And then Skydance buying WB will bring back the DCEU and hopefully Snyder. Hey, from your lips to God's ears. I need to cross my fingers this way because it always looks like I'm flipping people off when I cross them the other way. I need to get in that habit. So, but yeah, I kind of said like Netflix, I kind of felt like was the one that had the, that seemed like the most likely to bring back the Snyderverse because of course Snyder's already doing stuff with them. But I still said like when it was Comcast was the other company that was looking into buying Warner Brothers. And I kind of figured whatever company buys Warner Brothers, they're going to look at the numbers and they're going to figure out that's the smart thing to do. So that's what they're going to do. Snyderverse is coming back one of these days. It's inevitable. I keep seeing idiots on Facebook trying to, you let it go. The Snyderverse is never coming back. You know what? I never thought I'd see Michael Keaton as Batman again. And yet I got a movie with a 70-year-old Michael Keaton as Batman in it. So never say never, folks. Anything could happen. Ben Affleck himself said, hey, anything could happen. So I'm still a believer in the Batfleck. I'm still a believer in Zack Snyder. And Henry Cavill is still my Superman. Like Henry Cavill, Christopher Reeve is always my number one favorite Superman of all time. But Henry Cavill is my favorite Superman actor alive. He is the worthy successor to Christopher Reeve. And where was I? Al Davis says, I prefer him to the Irish mush face thing in the deleted scene for the Batman. That's the bottom for me. The Ginger Jedi from Gotham. And then Leto. Yeah, like I forgot about the Batman version, honestly. And I'm pretty sure that's Pete Davidson is the actor that plays him there. And he's not wearing any makeup at all, right? That's who that is, right? I'm pretty sure it's Pete Davidson. Raheem says, I watched Zack Snyder Justice in color and in black and white. Yeah, it's good that we have those options, isn't it? And there are different scenes in there. So it's not just a difference between watching a color movie and a black and white version. They're both worth watching. Al Davis says, I love the line from Skeletor, I'm the villain. And I like it. Yeah, he was great. And Frank Langella, Raheem Hamilton says Frank Langella would like to argue who is the best Skeletor. Hey, I didn't say Jared Leto was the best Skeletor. I said I loved Jared Leto as Skeletor. I didn't say I liked him better than Frank Langella. And Frank Langella, he says that's still one of his favorite roles he ever played. He took that part because his son was a big fan of He-Man, and he loved playing Skeletor. He loved the hell out of playing that role. So kudos to Frank Langella, great, fantastic actor. Like one of my favorite Draculas, also one of my favorite actors to play my second favorite character of all time, Count Dracula. Al Davis says Zorro and the Green Hornet too. Maybe Green Hornet would be another perfect character within there. Speaking of which, Frank Langella played Zorro also. And Al Davis says, love 300. Yes, 300 I still think is one of the best Zack Snyder movies. It's not his best movie anymore because he's made better movies since. Even better movies since, I should say. But it's still a great movie, and I watch it all the time. And I'm a big fan of Masters of the Universe, Conan, all that high fantasy sword and sorcery type stuff. And I think 300 fits into the sword and sorcery, probably more technically in the sword and sandal genre. But I think there's enough mysticism in it with the oracles and the creatures that we see in Xerxes' camp, and even at least what we see in the sequel, the origin of Xerxes himself. He's supposed to be a supernatural creature. I think there's enough sorcery in 300 that you can disagree with me you want. I'm going to count 300 as sword and sorcery. And Raheem asked, did Gunn contribute to Dawn of the Dead? Really? What did he contribute? Really? Well, he did write the script, but I think it was rewritten afterwards. And Al Davis, as he wrote it, I thought, well adapted. But yeah, I think somebody did rewrite it after him. So I'm not sure how much of Gunn's Dawn of the Dead remains in there. But I'm gonna go ahead and err on the side of giving him credit, just because his name actually is in the credits. I might not like the guy, but again, I'm gonna give him his props when I feel like they're due. I might think that 99% of what he did with DC has not been good, but I like seeing this DC logo again, so I'll give him props for that. Scoot McNairy, yeah, that's the guy. That's Ben Affleck's friend in real life, and he works together with him a lot. He was in Gone Girl, and he was in Argo. So yeah, Scoot McNairy. That's I couldn't remember the actor's name, but yeah, that's his name. That's Scoot McNairy. And then Raheem says Jesse is a great Lex Luthor. Convince me I'm wrong. Again, I think Jesse was great as Lex Luthor in that movie. I think people's problem with that version of Lex Luthor is they just wanted a live action version of Clancy Brown in the animated series, and who can blame them? That's what I wanted too. But again, rewatching those movies, they benefit from rewatching. And the more I look at Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor, the more I realize what a wonderful and complex character that he is. And his dialogue is so good. Again, talking about how the writing is underrated in these movies. Jesse Eisenberg, his dialogue is Lex Luthor with all the wordplay and everything. And there's all these double meanings to double meanings and triple meanings to practically every line that he has. What was the line? The quickest road to Superman is a straight line called Lois Lane. Road, lane. You see what he's doing there? You see what he's doing? He's throwing those puns and that wordplay, and he's telling us that he tells you things through the wordplay that he's not telling you clearly. People would say, criticizing his performance, that he was more like the Riddler, but I'm going to say this as a compliment, that his version of Lex Luthor is more like the Riddler than really any version of the Riddler I've ever seen, because he's constantly telling you riddles. If you pay attention to his dialogue, he's constantly giving you little word puzzles to figure out. And then some people just have dumb criticisms, like they'll criticize the bit where the senator guy or whatever, where he sticks the Jolly Rancher in his mouth. He's like, well, that's stupid. Why do you do that? Because he's making the senator his little bitch. Again, Zack Snyder doesn't spoon feed stuff to you. You need to pay attention. You actually think when you're watching a Zack Snyder movie. And then Raheem says Leto is a better Joker than the actor in the Batman. Again, yeah, we were talking about that, who plays the Joker. And Jim Carrey is a better Riddler than the actor in the Batman. I concur, because he wasn't even playing the Riddler. He was playing the Zodiac Killer. And I'm pretty sure, like I said, I'm pretty sure the actor in the Batman that played the Joker was Pete Davidson, right? Right? It's Pete Davidson. It's Pete Davidson. I'm gonna say it's Pete Davidson. And then Al Davis has agreed on both counts, and then says Michael Rosenbaum, he had motive after his limousine got fucked and he lost his hair in the meteor shower, and giving a great reason to investigate it and hold a grudge against meteors. Yeah, I did love Michael Rosenbaum as Lex Luthor. I thought that was a great way of doing the Silver Age Lex Luthor. So, I mean, there's a little bit of post-crisis in there too. We got LexCorp, but really it was the Silver Age version of Lex Luthor in a modern context, and I loved that because I love Silver Age and Bronze Age Lex Luthor. I do love that. They did do a great job with that. Raheem says, if the Snyderverse is dead, how come the Snyderverse toys are selling more than the Guns DC toys? Well, that's the real question, isn't it? And hey, let me say something else. Putting Gunn aside for a second, who of all the live action Batmen do you think this figure, if we're being honest, who does this look the most like? Doesn't really look that much like Adam West, other than the coloring. The coloring's pretty similar to Adam West. It doesn't really look much like Michael Keaton. It certainly doesn't look much like Robert Pattinson, Christian Bale. You know who I think it does look like? Just my opinion. Just throwing that out there. So even the non Ben Affleck Batman action figure, it looks like Ben Affleck. Could that be because Ben Affleck looks like Batman? I'll let you answer that question in the chat. If you made it this far in the replay, leave a comment and let me know. Let me know if you think it's does this Batman look like Ben Affleck, or does Ben Affleck just look like Batman? Which one is it? Is Bruce Wayne the Mask, or is Batman the Mask? Al Davis agrees on Henry Cavill and said, it's an Irish actor. He was in the Eternals. I didn't know Pete Davidson was Irish. Barry Keoghan. I didn't know that Pete Davidson was using an alternate name when he was in the Batman, calling himself Gary Keoghan. How about that? It's Pete Davidson. You're not fooling me. Raheem says, when Dolph got the Sword of Power back and said, I have the power. Yeah, it was epic in Masters of the Universe. Yeah, I love Dolph Lundgren. I love Dolph Lundgren as He-Man. I thought he was great. He was that perfect, lawful good kind of hero. And then Al Davis says, my ugly bar starred comment got wiped. I guess it must have got wiped before I got to it, unfortunately. Zach is such a Superman fan, says Raheem, that he not only knew Clark Kent's middle name, you ask these so-called Superman fans, they can't tell you. Clark Joseph Kent. Yes, exactly. Paul Dano. Yeah, Paul Dano played the Riddler he played the Zodiac Killer in the Batman. That was allegedly the Riddler. And Paul Dano, I don't want to talk smack about him in general because I think he's like a really good actor. And I thought he did some good acting in that movie. Don't get me wrong. But that character was not the Riddler. I'm sorry, not in any way, shape, or form. And this is going to be a really controversial statement considering how everybody loves the show he was on. But Colin Farrell was not the Penguin either. He was playing Al Capone. He was playing Robert De Niro playing Al Capone, and he was great at it. He did a great job playing Robert De Niro playing Al Capone. But he was not the Penguin. I will say though that I think his act, like I guess I think his acting was excellent, and I'm not trying to say anything bad about his acting, because I do think he was really good, and I was happy anytime that Colin Farrell showed up on screen when I was watching that movie, because finally something interesting was going on. Finally something entertaining is happening in this movie, and I'm not about to fall asleep. but yeah, he was great as Robert De Niro as Al Capone. I thought he was great. That's probably why people like that show so much. I still don't watch that show. I'm just not going to bother. Sorry. And then Raheem says, I think the post-crisis Lex Luthor, they modeled him off Donald Trump. He was a big name in New York City in the 80s. Yes, and in fact, if you don't believe that's true, go ahead and Google Lex Luthor, the unauthorized biography, and compare that to the cover of the book Trump, The Art of the Deal, and tell me that that you don't see some resemblance there. Yes, he was absolutely based off Donald Trump, at least partially, as being the big businessman mogul with the big ostentatious tower, which, of course, Trump just had the sign that said Trump Tower on the front, but Lex Luthor actually literally made his building into the capital letter L as the initial of his name. So yeah, there's a lot of Donald J. Trump, and rather than some kind of weird comb over, Lex just shaved his whole head, which I think honestly, if you're gonna lose your hair, shaving your head, that's the way to go. Donald Trump would look badass if he shaved his head. That's what he ought to do. I'm just throwing that out there. People would make me, but I guess that's just his look at this point. That's what he's going with. He's gone with it for a long time, I guess. Whatever. But let's not talk about the Orange Man anymore. This is an Orange Man free zone. We don't talk about the Orange Man here, unless it's pointing out how he's similar to Lex Luthor. Because let's be honest, and Biff Tannen in Back to the Future 2 was based off of Donald Trump, and those were both based off Donald Trump before it became like just the hip thing to do, where before every villain was based off of Donald Trump. And then Colin Farrell says, Raheem says Colin Farrell was not playing the Penguin. He was playing Tony Soprano, playing the Penguin in that show. Yeah, so in the movie, and I never watched The Sopranos, so you could be right about that with the movie as well. But watching the movie, I just kept thinking of Robert De Niro playing Al Capone in The Untouchables. But in the TV show, yeah, that was the other thing I said about the TV show. It's like, dude, if I'm gonna watch The Sopranos, I'm gonna watch The Sopranos. And Al Davis says, I wish Lex was an evil bald Elon Musk with Metropolis as his capital. Could be a mega businessman, super brain, scientist, inventor, engineer. Yes, and I'm gonna say this. Again, I don't want to invoke the name of the Orange Man, but now I kind of have to. I would much rather see if he's going to be based off of somebody, I would much rather see a Lex Luthor that's based off of Elon than one that's based off of Trump. I think Elon Musk, I'm not sure if this is a compliment or an insult, but I think Elon Musk would be fantastic as the basis for a Lex Luthor character. I'm not sure if I'm paying him a compliment or not. I tell you what, Elon, if you're watching this, I definitely mean it as a compliment. Anybody who hates Elon that's watching this, I definitely mean it as an insult. There, now everybody's happy. Al Davis says Clancy Brown and Superman the animated series looking like Arnold Vosloo or a beefy Yul Brynner, or the character that the animated series version was actually based on was Telly Savalas. His performance as Ernst Stavro Blofeld in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. That was the basis for the animated series, the Clancy Brown, the Bruce Timm design of Lex Luthor. I'm pretty sure the reason they hired Clancy Brown for the role is because he sounded kind of like Telly Savalas in that movie, honestly. Yeah, okay. I'm going to say it. My favorite live action Lex Luthor is Telly Savalas in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Al Davis says, I like Elon in real life. Well, then I meant it as a compliment. You can take it however you want. I'm not sure if it's a compliment or an insult, but yeah, Elon Musk, if he wanted to be Lex Luthor, he totally could be Lex Luthor. And then Clancy Raheem says a little factoid I did not know, that Clancy Brown first auditioned for Clark Kent / Superman before he was cast as Lex Luthor. And if they hadn't gone with Tim Daly, I think Clancy Brown actually could have pulled it off. I think he could have been a good Superman, actually. I never really put much thought in it, but he's an excellent actor. And he's played kind of like warmer, more heroic characters like that before. But yeah. And then Al Davis says, On Her Majesty's Secret Service is one of my favorite Bonds and Blofelds. He might be my most favorite Blofeld. I know Donald Pleasance is iconic, and he's excellent in the role as well. But there's something about Telly Savalas where he has that kind of physical presence that all the other actors that play Blofeld completely lack. And he's a guy who he's not afraid to get his hands dirty. Like when James Bond escapes from Piz Gloria, he straps on a pair of skis and goes after him with the rest of his men. And I can't see Donald Pleasance doing that. I can't see Christoph Waltz doing that, and I hated that version. That version was terrible. Or Charles Gray, I can't see him doing that. And Charles Gray is a fine actor. I love him in the 7% Solution where he plays Mycroft Holmes. He's a great Mycroft Holmes. And of course, I think most people these days who know Charles Gray know him from the Rocky Horror Picture Show, where this man has no fucking neck. That's the criminologist. So, and Arnold Vosloo would have been a good Lex Luthor too, by the way. Arnold Vosloo in that Van Damme film Hard Target, he was a badass. I understand why they cast him as a mummy, but yeah, Arnold Vosloo would have been a great Lex Luthor. And then, what is the worst Bond film? And go. Okay, Raheem asked that. I think for me, the worst Bond film, that probably actually would be Spectre, just because of how it ruined Blofeld as a character. There's a lot of cool stuff in Spectre, so it's still kind of worth watching for me a lot of the times. But the way they did Blofeld in that just completely ruins it for me. I think it's crazy how they tried to do a version of Blofeld where they were trying so hard to get away from Dr. Evil and that kind of imagery. And then they just wound up stealing the origin of Dr. Evil and actually made the version that was closest to Dr. Evil of any version of Blofeld. It's like, how did you try so hard and fail so miserably and do the opposite of what you intended to do so spectacularly? It's amazing. I'm not even upset. I'm impressed. I'm not a fan of. I'm also not a fan of Quantum of Solace, just because I think that one's kind of dull. I think overall it's a better movie. It's a better movie than Spectre, but I enjoy watching Spectre, even though I think it's a worse movie even than Quantum of Solace. But Quantum of Solace also, they didn't have a proper script when they were filming that because of the writer's strike. So there's a problem. And then Al Davis says all of the Craig Bond films except Casino Royale. My eyes looked one of my exes, I'm sorry, it looked exactly like Ava Green in that film. You lucky bastard. I would say that the Craig films are the most uneven because the good ones are just excellent and some of the best James Bond films ever made, and the bad ones are just terrible. And like I think the most mid was probably No Time to Die. Like I didn't think it was horrible, but I don't feel like revisiting it either. And Quantum of Solace, like I said, was just dull. And Spectre was just plain bad, but at least it was entertainingly bad. But bad James Bond movies, to me, it's like pizza or sex. Even when it's bad, it's still pretty enjoyable. And then Al Davis says, very true. Telly was imposing status unto himself, charismatic and intimidating, and obviously smart. Again, why he would have made a great Lex Luthor. And then Raheem says Arnold Vosloo also played Zartan. He was great as Zartan. I liked him as that too. I would have loved to have seen Arnold Vosloo in the classic Zartan costume with the hood and the black around the eyes and the breastplate. I think he would have looked really cool in the full Zartan costume. And he was. I like Arnold Vosloo. He's a good actor. And even though I did not like him as Darkman, he's a good actor, but he was miscast as Darkman, if I'm being honest. Only Liam Neeson can be Darkman. Liam Neeson is Darkman. And then Raheem Hamilton says, I thought the worst one was View to a Kill. That's a contender right there. I think View to a Kill is the worst of Roger Moore's James Bond movies, and I think it suffers greatly from having Roger Moore in the role. As much as I love Roger Moore, he was not in his prime at that point anymore. I always say his last movie should have been Octopussy, And in my head canon, his last movie is Octopussy. That's the story of how the story of his version of James Bond ends, with him retiring from the Secret Service, and he goes off to live happily ever after with Octopussy, and they're just, going around the globe, having, adventures and having all kinds of hot sex. That's how the Roger Moore version of James Bond ends in my mind. So, and then Al Davis says, I was lucky looks wise, but she was kind of a pain in the ass, though. Yeah, that tracks. That's you gotta have that trade-off, man. It's like I don't want to get into that on this video, but yeah. And then Raheem says, I think Craig only had 2 Bond films, Casino Royale and Skyfall. Those are the 2 that I consider to be his best. And by the way, when I was saying that Honor Majesty's Secret Service was like one of my favorites, it depends on what mood I'm in, that what I'm gonna say. But my top three is always, and they kind of shift directions: Goldfinger, Casino Royale, Honor Majesty's Secret Service. And then Al Davis says, Raheem, what are you saying? It had Christopher Walken in it. And then Raheem said, I heard Moore was 56 at the time he did A View to a Kill. Am I wrong? If not older. He was even Roger Moore knew he was on his last legs as Bond. They talked him into doing one more, and he didn't really want to at the time, because he felt like he was too old with it. He was too old for it. And then one of the actresses in the movie, I'm not sure which actress, I don't know 100%. I suspect it was Tanya Roberts, who I love and is smoking hot. Not the best Bond girl, but it's not her fault. It's because the character wasn't written well. But she's smoking hot. I like Tanya Roberts. Tanya Roberts, I'll go either way. Like Beastmaster, Sheena. Hell, that 70s show, she still had it going on. But yeah, like I think it was her. And when she met Roger Moore, she was like, oh, it's so nice to meet you. My mother had a crush on you when she was a little girl. And then Roger Moore's like, yeah, I'm definitely getting too old for Bond at that point. And then I love how they filmed the title, What of You, and then Walken said, To a Kill. Yeah. Well, how they named the title in the film. I gotcha. With Grace Jones. We were just talking about Grace Jones when we were talking about Conan the other day. Yeah, I like Grace Jones. She was all over the place in the 80s too. So she was in a Conan movie and she was in a Bond movie. So of course I like Grace Jones. She had the sexy rap Holly Hunter voice. Nice. Yeah, I do like me some Holly Hunter. And then Raheem says Timothy Dalton was the best Bond, and it's sad he only got 2 outings as Bond. I absolutely agree that he should have had more appearances. I would have loved to see more of Timothy Dalton. Timothy Dalton walked so Daniel Craig could run. That's what I always say, is that like at the time, just coming off of Roger Moore, general public wasn't ready for a truly gritty, grim Ian Fleming style James Bond like that. And the movies did well. They did well at the box office, but I don't think people warmed to him like he really deserved. But hey, once you got into the 90s, then we were starting to like that. And Timothy Dalton was brought a little more of that Ian Fleming into it, but still kept a little bit of that Roger Moore. He was like the happy medium. I would say that Timothy Dalton is my second favorite James Bond. And of course, number 1 is Sean Connery. But then again, I never saw Timothy Dalton use a jetpack. And what did I say about jetpacks? There's nothing in this world that can't be immeasurably improved with the inclusion of a jetpack. So, Sean Connery had a jetpack, Timothy Dalton didn't. So who's the best James Bond? I'm just saying. Roger Moore, I don't think ever had a jetpack. Pierce Brosnan was in a scene with a jetpack, the same jetpack as Sean Connery, but he didn't actually wear it. Daniel Craig, forget about it. They were trying to do those way too serious. He wasn't ever going to have a jetpack. But yeah, Timothy Dalton, I think probably could have pulled it. Timothy Dalton, he says, Raheem says, would have killed it in GoldenEye. I absolutely agree. And they did try to get him back. But by that time, he felt like so much time had passed that he only wanted to do one more. And what would have been the point of restarting the James Bond franchise with an actor that's only going to do one more movie? You got to have a guy who's willing to commit to more. So they wanted him to do like 3 of them. And he's like, I only got one more left in me at this point, because it's been years. And they agreed to amicably part ways. And it's unfortunate that it was legal entanglements that kept the third one from getting made. Honestly, they would have had another one out probably sometime in between, at least one more in between the time of License to Kill and GoldenEye, if not for those legal entanglements. By the way, License to Kill, and some of you have probably heard me say this before in the chat, License to Kill is the first James Bond movie that I ever saw in full. The first time I ever saw James Bond was I had to go to bed. So it was my bedtime, little kid. As I saw the pre-credit sequence of For Your Eyes Only, with the helicopter and Blofeld in the wheelchair and all that stuff. And I just thought it was so cool. And then there's the opening credits and all these naked women running around the opening credits. And my mom's like, well, time for bed. So I didn't get to see a full James Bond movie until many years later when I saw License to Kill on HBO, and I absolutely loved it. And I know a lot of people don't like that movie because it's too grim or too gritty or too serious or too realistic or any of the things that people say they love about the Daniel Craig Bond movies again. But for me, it was the first time I ever really saw a James Bond movie, so I didn't have any preconceived notions at all. I just thought it was a really cool spy thriller about this secret agent taking out a drug cartel because he wanted to avenge his best friend and his best friend's wife. And I just thought it was awesome. So I loved it. And I was a Bond fan ever since. So that one's always got a special place in my heart. And Timothy Dalton will always have a special place in my heart as 007. And Al Davis agrees. He says, Raheem, good call. That would have been cool. Imagine if they filmed the damn early scenes before the Living Daylights and then used it for the opening for GoldenEye. Yeah, that would have been really freaking cool. It's kind of funny. I found this really old picture of Terry Hatcher from the 1980s. So then I went and found a picture of Timothy Dalton as Remington Steele, in a tux and everything. And it was either a tux or a nice suit or something. And I posted them both next to each other on Facebook. And I said, James Bond and Paris Carver when they met in the 1980s. But yeah, it was like a really young Terry Hatcher, like around the time when she was on the Love Boat, because she was on the last season of the Love Boat. So that was I think her first real big acting job. And then Raheem said the studio did Dalton's second outing when they released that film in 1989 in the summer. James Bond does better with a fall release. The summer was killer. Yeah, and think about this. It's not just any summer. It's the summer Batman came out. Batman dominated everything. And even without Batman, there was so much competition that year because you had the third Indiana Jones movie, the second Ghostbusters movie, the fifth Star Trek movie, the second Lethal Weapon. I think Lethal Weapon 2 came out that year. A ton of huge movies that came out that summer, and so it did pretty well. I mean, I think it was a profitable film, but was not as huge of a hit as it could have been with all those other movies going up against it. And then Al Davis says, having the same Felix Leiter actor was great, but getting eaten by a shark like that is just pure fucked up nasty. Yeah, it is. But to be fair, Felix got a bit of a reprieve because that was supposed to happen to him back in Live and Let Die. And technically, they made Live and Let Die a lot later than they should have. I think that was like the second James Bond novel, but they didn't make it until the 1970s. So really, if they made them all like properly in order, they would have. They didn't have the rights to do Casino Royale when they first started that series, which is why they just started with Dr. No. But if he really wanted to do the movies in order, they would have had to start with Live and Let Die. So really, Felix should have got eaten up by a shark in the first movie, technically. but that totally came from the novel of Live and Let Die, and also the method in which they feed him to the shark. They don't just lower him into a shark tank. They got him tied to the back of a boat and then dragging him over coral in shark-infested waters. And if that sounds familiar to you, it's because they also use that. They use little bits and pieces from these novels all through these movies. They use that in For Your Eyes Only, because that's how they're torturing Bond and Melina in that. So, and in the novel, that winds up being how they try to torture Bond and Solitaire also. So that's just something they do with people that they're trying to kill or maim or torture or whatever. And Raheem says Terry Hatcher is a very sexy Lois Lane. Yeah, one of the sexiest, I think. Like, if it's not her, it's Erica Durance, who's my most favorite Lois Lane. Yes, that's right. Not only does Smallville have one of my favorite Lex Luthors, if not my most favorite official Lex Luthor, like I said, I like Jesse Eisenberg, and I like Gene Hackman. How can I not? And I really like, and I feel like he's very underrated. I was surprised at how much I liked him. John Cryer, I thought was a great Lex Luthor. And then, but yeah, it's either Terry Hatcher or Erica Durance for the hottest Lois Lane, I think. So, and then Al Davis says, she always gave me Phoebe Cates vibes. I can absolutely see that. They got a similar shape to the face, the same kind of olive complexion and the almond kind of eyes and the dark hair. Yeah, I can definitely see that. Al Davis says, I have about 7 of the Fleming books, old ones too. Thunderball. Yeah, Thunderball actually started out as a movie script. That's why it got so messed up with the legal issues and Kevin McClory and all that. Is like they were developing a script and the movie fell apart. So Ian Fleming wound up using like the plot of the movie for his novel, and then McClory sued him. And unfortunately, they say that was probably part of what weighed heavily on Fleming's heart and might have caused him to have that heart attack. He died way too young, unfortunately. Such a brilliant writer. And then Al Davis says, young Jane Seymour was beautiful. Hell, old Jane Seymour is beautiful. I follow her on Instagram. I still would. I would take her over any 20-year-old girl in the entire world. I'm going to say that right now. Raheem says, forget the sharks. Maybe the first thing to be is sea bass. Are they ill-tempered? We're going back to Dr. Evil again, aren't we? Raheem says Amy Adams is also a sexy Lois Lane. You're telling me that bathtub scene, man, that was some steamy stuff. I would have liked it. I would have liked it if her Lois was a little brassier. I thought she was great. I enjoy her version of the character. Don't get me wrong, but like to me, Lois should have a little more sass to her. You know what I mean? I thought she was good, but just turn the sass up just a couple of notches, and she would have been absolutely perfect. And I'm kind of torn on her having red hair, because Lois really, traditionally she's a brunette, dark hair, either black or brown. And of course, Amy Adams famously is a redhead. But do I want to put a wig on Amy Adams? No. Do I want to dye that beautiful red hair? No. So we'll just let Lois be a redhead. And besides, it's not like there's not a precedent to it. Noelle Neal was redheaded on a few seasons of the old Adventures of Superman television series. So I say, why not let her be redheaded? Al Davis says, I'm a fan of the underused, underutilized, overly clad Rachel Brosnahan. She's underly clad unless you know how to look. I'm just saying. Google is your friend. She gets, oh yeah, okay, you know then, because she gets her in the very first episode of the marvelous Ms. Maisel. Very nice. Yes, I was impressed by her talents, and she's a pretty good actress too. Oh, hopefully she gets to play Lois in a much better movie at some point. Al Davis says, I love her, but her spunk, spirit, and fieriness as an actress too, as well as being a super hottie. Yes, indeed. I agree. And then Al Davis says, I think we're in the third hour. So is Lone Dragon here? Did I miss Lone Dragon? Is he here? Yeah, we're an hour. We've been talking for a while, and this is the part of the stream where I've said everything I need to say about the action figure, so we can safely talk. Anybody who's watched the replay, you've already seen everything you need to see me say about this action figure. So this is free time. It's free time. We're carrying on. Al Davis says Kevin Kline married Phoebe Cates. Lucky bastard. Yes, indeed. They're still married, which makes me happy. Like I'm glad that that there's at least one Hollywood couple that's making it work and making it last all these decades later. And yes, I always was a little jealous of the guy. I mean, I can see why she likes him too. So, it's like, if it's possible to ship people in real life, I would ship those two. I like Kevin Kline. I'm a fan of Kevin Kline. I think he's a great actor, and he's a handsome dude. He's a charming guy. I can see why she would be into him. And, she basically retired from acting because she just wanted to concentrate on her family and raise her kids, and good for her. Yeah, Lone Dragon is here. Have you been in the chat? Did I miss you? There's just, yeah, here we go. Okay, I'm here. You can start the stream from the very beginning. I totally missed it. There's been so much chatting here going on. We've had a very busy chat today, and I didn't even see that you posted it for the first time. But you can watch the replay. You can see the rest of it. But hey, I'm glad you managed to catch it. Yeah, like Al said, we're like 3 hours in. We've been talking for a while. We've been talking just about a whole bunch of stuff. We've been talking James Bond and He-Man and everything. 300. We went on a whole Zack Snyder tirade. Al Davis says Lana, Lois, Lucy, Lara, Lex Luthor, Lionel Luthor, Lemmy Wilson, Larry Light, Lalford the Butler. Hey, that's Lalford Lennyworth, I'll have you know. Or in the Golden Age, Lalford Legal. Yeah, and plus I'd like to point out it's Lana Lang, Lois Lane, Lucy Lane, Laura Lorvan was her maiden name before she became Laura Jor-El. So those are all double L initials, So yeah, Laura Lorvan, that would be I know Superman's mother's maiden name. We're talking about Clark Kent's middle name. No, I know Superman's mother's maiden name. So, that means I also know Superman's maternal grandfather's name because it's Lorvan. That's how the Kryptonian names work. The Supergirl's real name is Kara Zor-El because her father's name was Zor-El. And Supergirl's mother is named Allura Zor-El because her husband is named Zor-El. So that's how that works. And then Raheem says, I missed Toys R Us, KB Toys R Us. You and me both, brother. Lister Lixies Pitalik? Maybe. Except for, Lister Lixies Pitalik. As long as you don't have no vowels in there. And then Martha Kent's maiden name was Clark. Raheem asked what Martha Kent's maiden name. Martha Clark Kent. Are you listening to word? Anybody who's seen Superman the movie knows that. But yeah, Martha's maiden name was Clark. That's where he got his first name from. And they do a whole storyline about that on Smallville too. Speaking of hot Superman actresses, I'm still a fan of Annette O'Toole. we talked about that before. Loomsday. Well, we had Bloomsday on Smallville, so that's close. Why did you say that name? I think Martha jokes have gone from being funny to being overplayed, and now they're back to funny again because I actually laughed at that. Shittingford, Shittingford. I'm a little lost on that one. Anyway, it's almost 7 o'clock. I wanted to try to take a nap before I had to leave for work, but that is that is not going to happen now because I gotta start getting ready for work very shortly. So I'm gonna have to bring this episode to a close. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, Batman action figure. So let me know in the comments what you think about this Batman action figure. Is Mattel back in a big way? Are we excited for the things that are coming, or do you think that McFarlane definitely should have held on to the license, and we would have been way better off if they had? Personally, I'm excited to see what Mattel's going to do. I'm super excited, but I will miss McFarlane, as I mentioned. If only we could have both. Can we have both? Let's have both. Raheem asked, you know who Annette O'Toole is married to? And yeah, that would be the gentleman that played Jimmy Perry White on Smallville. From God, drawing a blank on his name. Don't tell me his name. Don't tell me his name. From Clue and Spinal Tap, and he was Laverne Shirley. Do not tell me his name in the chat. I'm not looking at the chat. I need to remember this guy's name because I'm a fan of the guy. Because Michael McKean. It's Michael McKean. Michael McKean. Yeah. Al Davis says, I hope John Schneider. No, that was just on the show. Sorry. Work. What a schmuck. Yeah. Yeah, Lone Dragon. That's accurate. Raheem says Mattel sucks. Long live McFarlane. Give him a minute. Don't worry. Don't worry, Raheem. I'd already figured it out before it popped up in the chat, so I got it. Rory Calhoun. Yeah. I gotta go. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe and all that fun stuff. I will talk to you next time. Bye.